Difui always had great expectations. Since they were married in a prohibited area, he had never wasted any night he had. Since they fell apart, he had deliberately distanced himself from Gushijio. However, his desire for her had never stopped. It had only been suppressed by him. He loved her as much as he loved himself. Every single detail about her needed to be perfect. Difui closed his eyes slightly while feeling her fingers gently glide all over his body. However, something was awry. He felt as if he was being tickled. Could she have not known which body part was the most sensitive? He thought that was bad. While feeling rather uncomfortable, he opened his eyes and looked at her. He then realized that she looked serious, and her expression was almost similar to that of a doctor's. Difui could not believe it. "What are you up to?" His voice was utterly hoarse. Guzigius' lips twitched. "Checking if you are injured." Luckily, she did not find any exposed wounds on his body. Through checking his pulse, she knew that he did not suffer from any internal injuries. Except for the fact that he was rather lethargic, there was nothing serious. She looked at him sternly. "You were not thinking that I would do something to you right here, were you?" Difui was caught by surprise. Gushijio squinched her eyes. "This is an outdoor gazebo. People will occasionally pass by. I will not want others to see when I devour our lord." Although he had surrounded the gazebo with a veil, the veil was translucent, and if there were passers-by, how could they explain it to them? Difui sealed his lips tightly and then broke out in laughter. "Baby, in my dictionary, backing out is not allowed." His eyes were as deep as the ocean. With a grasp, he held on to her small hand which she was about to bring back to herself. Then he brought her hand towards the vulnerable part of his body and muttered, "If you would like to devour, please finish the job." Guzigius' hand was forced to touch it. It was scorching hot like melted steel. Gushijio also felt that her cheeks were burning. Finally, she understood that once Difui stopped suppressing his feelings, he would behave almost animalistic. Still such a narcissist, her heartbeat was out of control. Yes, she wanted him too, but at that place, she felt insecure. She grew anxious and suddenly hugged him. "Let's change location." They teleported right away. In the following moment, they appeared in the bedroom of the Celestial Master's palace. She had mastered her teleportation. Within the radius of hundreds of meters, she could teleport as she wished, without error of more than 1 meter. She was extremely good at it. However, she was very nervous that day, and instead of teleporting onto their bed, she made they almost crashed onto the wall as she was carrying Difui. She hurriedly took a few steps backwards. Not being wary enough, she bumped into the table. The table shook as well as the cup on it. Then, the sound of glassware shattering could be heard. Outside her bedroom stood the guards, which immediately called the maidservant over. "Who is in there?" The sound of the footsteps grew more audible. Someone was about to enter and have a look. The maidservants knew when she went out. Little did they know she would immediately teleport back. Gushijio looked at the person in her embrace who was half naked. That person was not at all nervous, but only looked at her with a smile. She cursed under her breath, and said in a hurry, "It's me. You can go. Go away from the compound. Without my order, do not enter." Although she had tried really hard to calm her voice, it was rather coarse. Upon hearing such a weird order from her, the maid-servants were confused, but they still did as told. They answered her order and left. 786 Gushijio put Difui on the bed, and Difui allowed her to do anything with him. He had a pair of eyes that were almost smiling today. Guzigius' cheeks were still very red and hot. She turned to lie down by his side, then squeezed his cheeks using her hands. "Why are you looking at me like that?" They were, in fact, the Lord's cheeks. She should cherish the fact that she was allowed to squeeze them. His skin was very elastic. She squeezed once and was unsatisfied. Hence she squeezed again and again. Difui moved his gaze slightly, grabbed one of her hands, and pulled her onto himself. Gushijio was then in his embrace. She was on top, and he was below. Their bodies were against each other's, and their gazes met. Difui held her hand that was squeezing his cheeks, and gave off a burst of soft laughter. Nervous? Guzigius' heart leaped, but still she was stubborn. Who is nervous? Di Fui kissed her fingertips, and then kissed every single one of her fingers, and said, "Then you are not good at flirting." Since when was flirting squeezing cheeks? On her fingertips was a tingling sensation. He was lying there with his shirts open and genitals almost visible. His smiling pair of eyes appeared to have ripples in them, which brought along a sense of captivation that would make others fall for him. He looked as tame as a white rabbit, but she was able to perceive the danger he brought with him. That guy was, in fact, unable to hide his dominance as a man. Gu Shizhou actually wanted to tease him, but ultimately was teased by him. She was on him, and his finger had already started moving its way up her body. Although she had had her body changed, the sensitive points on her body did not change at all. He was well aware of that. Hence, he could easily tease her until her face burned and her breathing quickened. She could not be so passive. She could not let him reign over her. Gu Shizhou always wanted to be the strong one. Hence, she pulled her hand back and pulled his hand out from underneath her shirt. "Do not touch." Di Fui's breath hastened, but he gave a peal of soft laughter, and immediately moved both his hands onto the top of his head. "All right, I won't touch." Gu Shizhou braved herself, ignored the pair of eyes that tended to quicken her heartbeat, and took off his shirt. He was obliging, raising his hand when being told to, moving his leg when being told to. He could not be any tamer. Very quickly, Gu Shizhou had almost stripped him. The shirt on her, although it was in a mess, was still covering her body. His genitals were already out in the open, whereas hers were still not so visible. Their position bolstered Gu Shizhou, and to top it up with his obedient-looking face, she was barely in control of her own heartbeat. She moved her little hands about his body like feathers. Di Fui, who had been watching her with composure throughout, was still lying there in obedience. However, flames started emerging in his pair of burning eyes, and his breathing hastened. Half a year of conflict, half a year of being apart, and the fact that he had been suppressing his emotions made that moment a time of relief. His manly instinct urged him to do it immediately. Still, she appeared to be beating around the bushes, doing things to his body, but not right to the gist. He initially wanted to wait for her to finish the complete set. Little did he know that the foreplay would take so long. Finally, he could not resist it any longer. He raised his arms and hugged her, then turned over to push her downwards. He held her head up as he kissed her, and said with a hoarse voice by her lips, "Shizhou, this is the first time for your body. I think it will be better for me to do it." Gu Shizhou was still unrelenting. I want to be on top." "All right, my wife, you can be on top." Di Fui was acquiescent. Since they had been together before for 8 years, Di Fui was more than experienced in this matter. The shadow of their bodies got tangled as the bed undulated to their movements. She was in fact above all the while, but the orchestrator was him. The moment their hearts and minds came together, tears emerged from the corner of Gu Zijia's eyes. He halted and held her waist. "Are you in pain?" Gu Shizhou was kissing him almost erratically. "Nope. Happy." Hurting her body was definite, but he was already experienced, so this would be much better compared to his first time. Also, it was good that Gu Shizhou was pretty resilient towards pain. Such a pain would not matter. She cried because she gave her all in kissing him, gave her all in latching onto him, as if such latching would allow time to stop and keep him here forever. He was always the root cause of any pain in her heart. She did not want the idea of separating to affect this beautiful moment. Hence, she kept the smile on her face. She could do it for him, just like how he did for her. Within a night, Di Fui was able to make her climax a total of 7 times. Di Fui was obviously an intermediate or even expert in the area. As they went up and down, he had managed to put tears to her eyes, making her moan uncontrollably. Gu Shizhou just let herself go with the flow. Although that was not their honeymoon night, they wanted each other to have the best of themselves. The light of the sunset cascaded through the window. Di Fui had fallen asleep. Since Gu Shizhou died, he had not been able to sleep properly and had been busy with all kinds of things. Now that the person that he loved the most was in his embrace, he was finally able to get a hearty rest. Gu Shizhou was also tired, but she did not fall asleep. She was reluctant to fall asleep. She laid on him obediently. From his body, she could smell a plain and cold scent, which could calm her thoughts. She used his collarbone as her pillow, letting her head lie on his shoulder while her arms were wrapped around his waist. She just kept looking at him as he slept. She was reluctant to be apart from him. She did not know how others would behave in a relationship, but she was going crazy at this stage. Gu Shijio felt that Di Fui and her were destined to be together. There was no other way to live. She really fell deeply in love with him. She would do anything for him. If their feelings for each other was real, why would the present matter so much to them? There was a popular saying, what was important was that they once meant so much to each other, not that their relationship was going to last forever. She lifted her hand to look at her finger. As they were under extreme heat just now, he slipped a ring on her finger. It was the ring that she once had, and now it was finally back on her finger. He said he would marry her, as the Lord. He would like to make everyone in the land know that she was his wife. He was preparing for their wedding, one that was so big for her that she would feel proud of marrying him. Getting such a promise from him made her happy. She never thought he would be proactive enough to say it. She even thought that he would make excuses saying that there was not enough time for the preparation, or saying that he would not like to occupy her for too long. Gu Shijio had already made up her mind that if Di Fui would marry her, she would regard him as her only husband throughout her lifetime, and would not fall in love with any other man until her last day. She possessed a small heart that was only able to accommodate one person as her lover. When Di Fui woke up, he realized that she was still in her initial sleeping position, curling like a kitten in his embrace. He was staring at her in silence. His pair of dark eyes were as dark as the night sky. Their gazes met, and Di Fui lowered his head to kiss her on her lips. Not asleep. Gu Shijio buried her head in his embrace and mumbled, I just woke up. She had been reluctant to fall asleep. He had left too little time for her. She could not bear to waste even 1 second. She did not want time to fly by wastefully in her sleep. However, Di Fui was a smart man. He knew her well, and his heart ached. He kissed the side of her cheeks and said, Shall we rest a little longer? I will hug you while you sleep. Gu Shijio shook her head and buried her little face in his chest. She mumbled, Fui, do you think that we will have kids? Di Fui placed his palm on her little stomach and rubbed gently. Let us wait for it to happen by itself. All right. She nodded, desperate for a child. She then chuckled. I want to conceive a child to latch onto you. With a child, you will be reluctant to leave us. Di Fui rubbed her forehead in response. Stupid. You are the person I am most reluctant to leave. It does not matter whether or not we have kids. In his heart, she came first. Her position was unable to be substituted by anyone. He would never put her in the same position as he did before. Di Fui brought his face closer to Gu Zijius and asked, Unable to fall asleep? She nodded. Di Fui's body trembled a little. Then let us get up. I want to teach you the knowledge of stargazing. Gu Zijius' body froze for a while, and she squeezed herself into his embrace. No. I am tired now. Then she closed her eyes. Di Fui was speechless, but he understood her intentions. She must be thinking that as long as she did not learn up all the skills of the Lord, God will increase his lifespan, at least by a little. How could it be so easy? How could God's plan be so easily interfered with? The remnants of his days had been fixed, and no matter whether she was able to learn up everything, he would not be able to stay. If she were not able to pick up those skills, she would only suffer in the rest of her days. He could not resist the urge and pulled her tightly into his embrace. I will carry you there. Gu Shijio became restless and pushed him away. No. I am tired as hell. I want to sleep. Di Fui kept silent. He stared at her eyes and noticed her faint dark circles. Perhaps she really was tired. His heart softened, and he pulled her back into his embrace again and patted her gently. All right, you sleep. I will hug you to sleep. Will you sing a song? Gu Shijio requested. Di Fui was stunned for a moment. I cannot sing as well as you. He was excellent with instruments, but his vocals were rather average. Di Fui tended to hide his weaknesses, hence he never sang to her before. I want to hear you sing. It could be a lullaby. Gu Shijio was determined. Di Fui did not want to disappoint her, Hence he looked for a song he was rather good at and sang it softly by her ear. He was singing a song once sung by Gu Shijio. I would like to ask the world how long does it take for a serendipitous encounter, on a night with the water and the moon as clear as a mirror, meeting below a putti tree. Fate comes to our fingertips, disturbed by our age, blowing the dust and manipulating our feelings, however unable to survive through time. No matter how much I hope for it, still, the best thing to do is to bid my wishes. With a grin, I looked at your face. How far apart are the sky and the earth? And before your eyes, how could I forget? That song was Lu Zijin's Putti Respite. His voice was magnetic, and he sang quite well. As his voice emanated by her ears, it brought along with it a taste of love. Gu Shijio was listening in his embrace. It was, in fact, a rather unemotional song, but she felt her heart ached after listening to it. Nonetheless, she still wanted to listen to Di Fui sing. Di Fui sang while rubbing her sleeping veins softly, hoping for her to have a good sleep. Before long, she fell asleep to the sound of his voice. The well-known celestial master Zhuo was the greatest god of the world. He was the Lord. As the news went around, the world exploded. Many found it unbelievable, but since it was the Lord himself who announced it before the crowd, everyone there was astounded. However, that was not the most breaking news. The Lord also announced another piece of news on that day. As the news spread out, the whole land experienced an upheaval. The Lord was going to marry the national celestial master. According to how it was being told, when the Lord made the announcement, the entire crowd remained in complete silence. Some were almost solidifying into sculptures before they broke out into cries of celebration. Gu Xietian was the most pitiful man on earth that day. It was only when Di Fui announced that he was aware of the news. He was initially handling the order on stage, and when the Lord's words came out, his legs limped, and he fell from above the stage, almost like a falling wild goose. Luckily, Mu Feng's eyesight was good, and his reactions were swift. With a long chain, he pulled him back, and placed him safely back to his original position. He patted his shoulder. General Gu, be careful. Gu Ziyishan's expression was as if he just got stricken by lightning. His mind was occupied with the fact that he was going to be the father-in-law of the Lord. I was not dreaming, was I? He was puzzled for some time, and such a thought only hit him later. Why did his daughter not mention it beforehand? It would at least give him some time to sort out his thoughts. He was so agitated that he almost had a heart attack. What he did not know was that the Gu Shijio in front of him was not the Gu Shijio he had before. She came from a different world. She had no blood connection with him whatsoever. When Di Fui was making the announcement, all of the Heaven's Gift disciples were there. Everyone had a different response. Qianyueran and Tianjiyue had a "that was why" expression on their face, while Long Sai had already figured that out earlier, only not pointing it out before Di Fui admitted it himself. He had mixed feelings. There was definitely despair. He had also expected that, no matter whether Gu Shijio got married to Di Fui, he never had a place in Gu Zijia's heart. She would only regard him as a friend throughout her lifetime, and he had to accept it. To Hua Wuyan, it was not a complete shock to her, but in her heart contained jealousy and dissatisfaction. Still, she could not do anything. Lan Jingyi was also there under the companionship of her brother. The news made her face pale, but she did not dare to show any expression of dissatisfaction. Of course, the rest of the people, with whom they were familiar and unfamiliar, were elated. Gu Camo never thought that the Lord was, in fact, Celestial Master Zhua. He was so agitated that he smacked his own head. However, amid the revelating news, he volunteered himself to be the witness of the marriage. He wanted to manage such a grand ceremony. It would be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for him. Their wedding day was set on the 3rd day of March, a day when flowers generally blossomed. The wedding of the Lord would definitely have the most grandiose preparation. Many would personally attend the wedding. Even the kings of all 3 kingdoms would be present. The king of Feishing Kingdom was Rong Jiaoluo's youngest brother. When Rong Jiaoluo was still alive, he had cared a lot for him. Hence, he excelled both intellectually and physically. The only thing was that he was still rather young, and his excellence had been shadowed by that of his brother. Had it not been for the series of events that had taken place, The throne would not be of his possession. He was brought up by Di Fui himself. He was 20 years old that year. Since succeeding the throne, he had done a few things for the people, hence was referred to as a good king. In the matter of the wedding of the Lord, he had been helpful. He had been involved in it personally, and had been using all the best resources available to him for the big day. Even Gu Zhaishan's effort became faint before his. All of it made it redundant for Gu Shijiao to be worried about the undeniably lavish celebration. Honestly speaking, Gu Shijiao did not even think of being worried about the matter. At the moment, her mind was occupied with thoughts of ways to extend Di Fui's lifespan. She was also really busy learning up the Lord's skills, and tending to her relationship with Di Fui. She had initially rejected learning up the Lord's skills, but she was told by Firmament Stone that God's plan could not be disobeyed. No matter whether she learned or not, things would go as they were meant to be, and her threatening tactic would be of no use. It was only then that she knew that Firmament Stone had connections with God's plan. She immediately pushed him to tell her about things to do with God's plan, but Firmament Stone kept his silence, saying that he had only been receiving signals pertaining to God's plan through his instincts. In fact, he was also rather confused about how he received the info. Gu Shijiao was, in fact, curious if she could try her luck with convincing the Almighty God to give Di Fui a longer life, but she was not able to find the way to find this deity. Within the period, she had gone to look for Long Moyen with the muscle, thinking of figuring something out through him. Long Moyen, of course, did not want to say anything, but beside Gu Shijiao was with the muscle. Hence, Long Moyen's secrets could not be kept. Sadly, even Long Moyen did not know how to go to the heavens. Through his memory, he knew that he was related to a king in the upper bound. He was brought up as Prince Long. In fact, Long Moyen probably did not know everything about his own life at this moment. Whatever the case, nothing much would come from him at this point. Gu Shijiao could not resist and asked Di Fui if he had asked Fairy Queenly about it before, and if Fairy Queenly had told him any secrets related to the upper bound. Di Fui sighed. He had asked her about it before, and he had his way to make Fairy Queenly tell the truth, but Fairy Queenly was, after all, one who had fallen from the above. In other words, she had been banished. Before her eyes was darkness, and then she lost her consciousness. When she woke up again, she then realized that she had been brought to the land. It could also be said that she had no idea where she was. In fact, Di Fui was more unrelenting than Gu Shijiao. He had naturally thought of the road to the above. Throughout those years he had found a few other individuals similar to Long Moyen, and had interrogated them about it in the dark, but they were all in circumstances not different from Long Moyen's. There must be some other way. I believe Long Moyen and the rest of them are not the only ones who came from heaven. There must be more. I am sure they know things. Gu Shijiao clenched her fist confidently. Di Fui pulled her close at the waist and nodded. I will keep on looking. He chose to make her look at the bright side instead of crushing her hope. It had been 8 days since her return to his side. For the last couple of days, she had been spending all of her time with him. She did not even have enough sleep. Whenever he opened his eyes, he would definitely see a pair of big, bright eyes staring back at him cautiously, as she was afraid that he would suddenly pass away. For a few days, she did not sleep well at all. Certainly, she was aware of that, too. She would pretend to be asleep just before he opened his eyes. Di Fui could obviously tell the difference between sleeping and pretending to be asleep. Her breathing, heart rate, and pulse were all different when she was awake. She was lying so closely in his arms, so he could definitely feel the difference. She could not hide the truth from him. He knew it very well that she was scared to lose him. Like a man who had been sentenced to death, everyone else would surely be worried as he slowly approached the end of his life. She was reluctant to let him go. Her insecurities started to creep in. However, Di Fui knew her well. He was well aware that she was trying very hard to help him stay. She was also worried about him. She did not want to become another weight on his mind, so she continued to laugh and joke with him like she was fine. She was still a quick learner like her usual self whenever new opportunities arose. But when she was not with him, she would fall into a constant state of anxiety, just like the 4 messengers. With each passing day she grew thinner. Though, She cherished every moment when they were together, and desperately wished time could just stop for them. Difui knew how bad she felt, but there was nothing he could do about it. He had to give her some hope, something for her to look forward to, so she would not break down while the time ticked by. His heart ached for her. He felt the pain. It was as if his heart had just been punched. He could only hug her tightly in his arms. He paid attention to Guzigia's dark circles which had nowhere to hide. He planted a gentle kiss on her nose and said, "Tomorrow is our wedding day. You should rest. I am hoping for a very beautiful bride." While he talked, he also pressed onto her acupuncture point that could help her fall asleep. He even sang some lullabies. As usual, Gu Shizhou hugged him and rubbed her cheek against his skin, like a clingy kitten in pursuit of his attention. "Fui, I have lost interest in the wedding. I want to visit Yinqing province tomorrow." Wuxia once told me about a strange man who would run around frantically in the winter with only his underwear. He claimed to have met people from heaven. Difui was speechless. He knocked her forehead gently and answered, "The man is mad, silly. I have been looking forward to our wedding for so long. Don't you dare run away." Gu Shizhou rubbed her forehead and protested. People laugh at him for his madness, but maybe that is because they do not see the world the way he does. Some men like to be mysterious. Maybe he is telling the truth. She would hold on to every chance that she found, regardless of how slight it seemed. She had to try, even when she knew it was hopeless. Difui kissed her again. "You seem energetic." He then proceeded to thoroughly make love to her. They had a very crazy time and tried everything that they could do. Finally, she gave up on the idea of skipping the wedding to visit the madman. Slowly, she fell deeply asleep in his arms. Like all traditions, a couple should not be living together before they were officially married, but Gu Shizhou insisted on breaking the conventions and moved into the residence of Celestial Masters Hua. Chapter 1792. The wedding. Gu Xietian was mildly against the idea, but Gu Shizhou had already made up her mind. There was nothing he could do to change it. They made an agreement that she would have to come home early on the wedding day as she needed time to wear the phoenix coronet and her wedding robes. It was the 3rd day of March, a very beautiful day indeed. It was a suitable day for a wedding. It was the most anticipated day for all the people of the Starry Crescent land. They had been eagerly waiting for the big day. The 10-mile-long street was very well decorated with red festoons to celebrate the day. By the street, people stood to wait. All of them dressed fully in red, as though it was time for another new year. Qianlingyu, Yanchun Lan Weihu, Bailey Su Gu Kanmo, and their friends from the Forbidden Land were all present as the guests from the bride's side. All of the aforementioned people were of noble status. They were not the type of people that were normally approachable by Gu Xietian. They even offered their helping hands for the wedding. To Gu Xietian, their presence came as both a surprise and astonishment. He was still very glad to have them. He understood that they were here only for his daughter. He believed that his daughter's wedding would be the most magnificent, one that was incomparable for any other woman on earth. The sound of a flute came floating in the air. The melody of the flute was very pleasant and lively. It fitted well into the sounds of the wedding gong and drum, lifting the spirits of every listener as the band played on. As the music slowly began, the house steward came and happily announced their arrival. "They are here." Gu Shizhou was already well dressed in the room. Her makeup was done by the best wedding chaperone from the palace. Her dress was from Difui, so it was surely exquisite. The dress perfectly complemented her beauty, as ethereal as the rosy clouds that suffused the evening skies. She was beautiful and even more charming with the dress. All her servants could not keep their eyes from her as they continued to admire her beauty in awe. Lan Weihu was obviously astonished as well. She looked at Gu Shizhou with eyes full of admiration. She clearly respected and adored Gu Shizhou. Gu Shizhou sat waiting anxiously for Difui's arrival. She could only feel at ease when she finally saw his face. She was as anxious as a baby who refused to leave her mother's side even for a second. Like any other girls, Gu Shizhou looked forward to having a wedding of the century for her own. Her biggest wish was to have a grand wedding, one that was witnessed by all when she finally married him. She would become his wife and share his journey, for better or for worse. Her wish was finally coming true. She would be the happiest bride if not for the fact that Di Fui was about to pass away. She shook her head to dismiss the thought. She did not wish to be reminded by these bad thoughts on her wedding day. There was still time. In 2.5 months, she was sure that she would eventually find a way. She would not stop until she reached her goal. Especially when it was about Di Fui. It was impossible for her to give up, not until the very end. She could hear the music slowly getting louder. Her place was very crowded, bustling with noise and excitement. However, the sound of the flute could clearly suppress all noises, and was heard all around as it kept pouring in. It was him. He had finally arrived. He played the wedding song personally, which was a first. Di Fui never played by the rules. This time was no exception. Excitement filled her heart. She could not wait to see him. The people outside were all cheering madly as Di Fui's escort came flying in the sky, instead of traveling on foot. The lead escort was a very well-known band, which was formed together by the most excellent artists. Chapter 1793. The wedding, too. They were of such high status that not even royalty could invite them to perform. Yet, all of them were somehow present here together, as the band for a wedding ceremony. They were all riding on flying lions that were covered fully in white. These flying lions were obviously trained to fly in unison. Their bodies were decorated with red elements as well, parading off their strong and powerful bodies. It was a very eye-catching scene. Behind the band was a group of teenagers. Ravished by their beauty, all of them appeared to have the same features of dashing eyebrows and charming eyes. Their kung fu was obviously outstanding too. Instead of riding the majestic cranes, all of them were standing on them. As the majestic cranes slowly glided through the sky, their robes fluttered elegantly in the air, catching the attention of all the onlookers on the ground. In the middle, there was a red carriage that was carried by a unicorn. The people were unsure of the material of the carriage, as it continued to shimmer brightly with 7 colored rays under the sun. The shape of the carriage highly resembled that of a fiery red peony that blossomed in the sky, thus creating a very visually impactful sight. The entire entry was immensely elegant and dazzling, taking everyone's breaths away. Di Fui did not remain in the carriage. Instead, he was riding the snow-white unicorn that was galloping through the air. Every inch of its skin was covered in long white fur. Its body was perfectly built with strong and toned muscles. The unicorn was the most famous majestic being on Earth. Most people had only heard about its existence but had never seen it. It was only now that they finally had the chance to witness its glory. It was completely beautiful and breathtaking. The flying lions were beautiful, but nothing compares to the unicorn. Their presence only served as a foil. The unicorn stood with its head held high, knowing that it was the best majestic being that had ever existed. Its character completely distinguished it from the common crowd. It was indeed very attractive. However, its attractiveness was still incomparable to its masters. Like the flying lions, it was merely a foil as compared to the charm of its master. Di Fui was dressed unusually red. He decided not to wear his mask today, thus revealing his true face. The red robes fitted him perfectly. Unlike the usual groom's robes, his robes were elegantly made with great radiance. In the air, the robes raged in the whirling winds. His facial features were beyond elegant. There were literally no words to describe his attractive appearance. Not even the best drawing could perfectly capture his beauty. He played the flute while his dark black hair gently fluttered in the wind, along with his red robes. His breathtaking presence had brought great amazement to the people. The ladies were obviously stunned. Even the men were greatly impressed by what they had just witnessed as well. The Lord's beauty and charm were beyond what they had imagined. It was no wonder that he chose to wear his mask at all times. His appearance was enough to attract great crowds even without revealing his true capability. The people were filled with waves of admiration. They adored the Lord and at the same time, admired Gu Shijio. All the ladies felt the same waves of emotion. Many of them admired Gu Shijio, for she was lucky enough to be married to the finest gentleman. As for the 4 messengers, each of them was taking their own rides and following closely by Di Fui's side to ensure a smooth journey. The whole escort team went forward with great strength, and stopped directly above the residence of the national celestial master. They then landed one by one while maintaining their formation. The simultaneous performance won people's acclaim, producing gasps of excitement. Chapter 1794. The Wedding 3. Di Fui landed the unicorn, lunged forward, and touched the ground gracefully. Many people kneeled before him. Gu Xietian was radiating with happiness when he welcomed the Lord. For the past 2 days, he had been haunted by some conflicting emotions. Anyone on earth would have to kneel and greet the Lord when he arrived. He was certainly no exception to the courtesy. However, the Lord was about to become his son-in-law. So, should he kneel as well? He tried to ask Luo Xinglan for her opinion, but she simply answered his confusion with another question. If our daughter is going to be married to the emperor, will you kneel before him when he comes? She cleared out the matter for him in a single sentence. Without a doubt, he had to kneel. Upon seeing the emperor, even the emperor's father-in-law had to prostrate himself 3 times as an act of respect. This time, it was the Lord that he was facing. Therefore, Gu Xietian immediately led the family and kneeled before the Lord when he arrived. Di Fui halted his steps. For the sake of Shijiu, you need not kneel before me from today onward. Gu Xietian's eyes shone with delight. He answered instantly and led the family to rise. Then he quickly showed Di Fui the way into the residence. The 4 messengers followed in along with the band while they kept playing their music. He is here. He is here. He is here. Gu Shijiu could hear the voices clearly in her room. The chaperones did not delay anything. They quickly helped Gu Shijiu up and covered her with the red bridal veil that was complemented with fringes and delicate embroidery. According to the marriage laws in the Feixing Kingdom, when the groom arrived to escort the bride to the wedding, the chaperones would have to lead the bride to the door and change her shoes. The bride would be presented to the groom in a long dress of red silk. The groom would hold one end, and the bride would hold the other end. The chaperones would then leave the room together towards the carriage. The chaperones had to act according to the laws. When they finally saw Di Fui, most of them stood to gaze at him for a few moments, but they did not forget what they were supposed to do. Immediately, they handed the red silk to Di Fui and greeted him, wishing him many years of happiness in the marriage. Di Fui took the red silk without hesitating. Instead of turning around, he took another huge step towards his bride. He possessed a tremendous aura that was indeed intimidating. The chaperones were frightened when he came closer, so much so that they almost fell to their knees. Di Fui flicked his sleeve and signaled the 2 chaperones to keep some distance away from Gu Shijiu. They obliged immediately. Swiftly, Di Fui bent over and carried Gu Shijiu in his arms. Looking at her red veil, he could not help but smile delightfully. Shijiu, I am carrying you. Gu Shijiu fell into his embrace. His arms were as welcoming as usual. Her insecurities started to fade away. All kinds of emotions started to fill her heart. Heartwarming, touching, and joyful. She knew that he was doing this for her. She told him once about the tradition in the modern days, where the groom would carry his bride in his arms from the room all the way to the car. Di Fui did not say anything when she talked about it, so she did not expect that he would still remember. He proved that he did with his actions. All the witnesses were utterly shocked. One of the chaperones wanted to remind him that it was inappropriate to do so, but she was too afraid to. All of them only stood looking at one another. Gu Xietian took the courage and said, My lord, you should hold the red silk with her. What you are doing now is rather inappropriate. Di Fui answered nonchalantly, I decide what is appropriate. Gu Xietian kept quiet. He dared not speak up anymore. What he did not realize was that the Lord's actions had completely changed the tradition since that day. All grooms would carry their brides out of the room instead of holding the red silk. Iju could not care less about what others thought. She raised her arms and tied them to his neck. Yes, she answered, while slowly leaning in against his chest. Di Fui walked slowly with her in his arms. Many people were astonished. When he was finally leaving the main gate, the couple immediately became the center of attention. The huge crowd was surprised to see Gu Shijiu in the Lord's arms. The pair left a very strong visual impact to the crowd. It was unheard of for them to witness a petite, delicate bride lying in the arms of the Lord, who was exceptionally strong and handsome. All the ladies envied her. With his bride in his arms, Difui carefully marched towards their carriage. The wedding would become the hottest topic of discussion for many years to come. Many people called themselves lucky to have witnessed the wedding. It was indeed a special one. Lan Weihu nestled her head on Yan Chen's shoulder. There was a sense of longing in her eyes. Yan Chen pulled her closer at the waist and whispered, "Weihu, maybe we will not be able to have a wedding as grand as this, but I will be sure to carry you all the way to our bridal carriage when the day comes." Lan Weihu was delighted by the response. Yes, she agreed happily. The escort took 2 rounds around the capital city in the air. The gesture implied the meaning of making the best of both worlds, as they believed that all good things should come in pairs. Thus, everyone in the capital had the chance to witness the grand event. Everywhere the carriage had been to, there would be petals floating in the air as if it were raining petals. In the carriage, Difui did not let her go. He still carried her in his arms. Even with a red veil covering her face, they had never felt so close to one another. "Shijiao, are you happy?" "I am." Difui returned a bright smile, and kissed her on the forehead through the veil. "I am too." He had been waiting for this moment since 9 years ago. He was prepared, but she ran away right before the wedding day. She now sat in his lap with their fingers intertwined. Both of their rings added to each other's splendor with a gleam. There they sat, lovely like an affectionate couple. Gu Shijiao suddenly thought of what she did in the past. "Sorry." She apologized for the last time she ran away from their wedding. Difui shook his head in disapproval. "It was all my fault. Shijiao, I am finally married to you. I am so happy." She nestled her head in his shoulder again. "Me too. It feels so surreal to me, like a dream." It was indeed a very magical dream. Difui rubbed his fingers against her cheek and answered, "I will let you know what is real tonight." "Pervert." Difui smiled and whispered in her ear, "I am only a pervert to you." Gu Shijiao was speechless. Reluctant to be inferior, she fought back and said, "It is because I allow you to." Difui could not hold back his amusement and laughed out loud. "It is better for me to accept your request courteously." His laughter was clear and resounding. The 4 messengers were equally delighted when they heard him laughing. The Lord would only laugh so heartily when he was with Miss Gu. No one knew how long had it been for him to laugh so joyfully. When Miss Gu was dead, the Lord behaved as emotionless as an ice statue. He would not talk much and was slowly wasting away. It was Miss Gu who restored the Lord to his cheerful self, the one who loved to laugh, to make fun of people and to tease people with his dark sense of humor. From time to time, the Lord would even poke fun at the 4 messengers. Miss Gu played a huge part in his change. All 4 of them were very grateful for Gu Shijiao, for she was able to bring great joy to the Lord at the dusk of his life. The thought of the Lord's final days brought tears to Mu Feng's eyes. Everything felt like a dream to Gu Shijiao, like a dream that was too good to be true. Everyone fixed their eyes on the arrival of the couple. They were surprised to see the Lord carrying his bride in his arms. All 3 emperors were present, including their officials of all ranks. Every other clan's leaders and their followers were present as well. The place was extensively decorated with bouquets and piles of brocades. There was a sea of faces swamped at the venue. These great leaders were all present at the same time, spread out in every corner, and waiting patiently for the arrival of the couple. There was no way to tell who was the noblest among them all, for many overlords were there. The overlords were considered as people who had traveled far and wide enough to have a breadth of knowledge, but none of them had ever seen a groom carrying his bride out their bridal carriage before. The protocol officer would definitely emerge and censure them for behaving so inappropriately, but it was the wedding of the Lord and the national celestial master. No one dared to express their disapproval. None of them could find the guts to do so. Many of them were present with their wives. A multitude of feelings surged up when they saw the Lord carrying his bride in his arms. Certainly, they were married to their husbands in an open, correct manner with a huge wedding celebration. However, their weddings were incomparable to what the Lord had done for his bride today. To their surprise, they would never have expected to see a man, as superior as the Lord, carry his own bride to their wedding ceremony. The gesture was very lovely, like he was holding something so precious in his arms that he carefully cherished. The intimate interaction did not set the world on fire. Instead, they thought that it was rather lovely for the Lord to attend the wedding ceremony with his bride in his arms. They fixed their eyes upon the couple as they walked. Long Sai was amongst the people present. He was immediately filled with complicated feelings when he saw them. Once upon a time, he pictured how he would hold his wedding when he finally reunited with Gu Shijio. He knew how weddings were like in the modern days, so he knew exactly what Gu Shijio wanted. He had even considered if he should carry her in his arms on the day of their wedding, but he was worried that such an act would arouse criticism. He tended to overthink and was overly concerned with too many trivial things. The more he was concerned, the more losses he had to suffer. Some things were not meant to be. He turned and looked at Gu Shijio fixedly. She lay happily in Difui's embrace, with her arms tightly locked around his neck. He could not see her expression with the red veil covering her face, but he could tell that she trusted Difui wholeheartedly from their interaction. She would not easily put her trust in anyone. In fact, Difui might be the only one that she trusted. To his surprise, he also noticed that Gu Shijio did not feel awkward under the many judgmental eyes. Instead, she nestled her head so naturally against his shoulder, as though he was the only one that mattered even when the whole world was collapsing on them. Long Sai thought about what Gu Shijio had once told him before, that he should not put his trust in anyone. If anything were to happen to the one he cared about, he would definitely be emotionally devastated. There was only one person that he should trust, which was himself. It was once her principle. Had she given up her own belief? Difui had let her down so many times. Had she forgotten all of that? Long Sai could not help it. He had to remind Gu Shijio when he finally had the opportunity. Regardless of what Long Sai had in mind, Gu Shijio was indeed a very happy woman at that moment. It was their big day. Gu Shijio should forget about the bad things and focus on the good ones instead. All eyes were staring as he carried her in his arms and went through the doors. The roaring music played on, along with the release of some firecrackers. He finally let her down when they arrived at the center of the wedding hall. The hall was brilliantly decorated. Besides the exquisite decorations, there was a board that was engraved with the words heaven and earth. As a tradition, newlywed couples would usually hang the board that was engraved with the words the Lord to pay respect to him as the guardian of the entire land. Now that it was the Lord's wedding, they certainly could not hang his own title up. The only higher superiority over him would be heaven and earth. The chief witness of the wedding ceremony was Gu Kanmo. His face began to light up, glowing with immense happiness. Apparently, he must have been told to follow another set of procedures, as none of the things he did follows the customs of how a traditional wedding was supposed to be carried out. First he faced Difui. "My lord, will you take Gu Shijio, the national celestial master, to be your lawful wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, to never let her go nor let her down, to carry out all services as told, to never go against any of her requests, and to honor her wishes truthfully?" It was not only Difui who was surprised by the bombardment of questions, but the guests in the hall were also all taken by great surprise as well. Some thought it was a gag. Long Sai was speechless. He looked at Gu Kanmo with eyes full of disapproval. Without a doubt, Gu Shijio must have revised the vows with him before the wedding. She had even used many terms from the modern days. Some were even quoted from the drama series. If the Lord agreed to the vows, it was safe to assume that he would become a henpecked husband who agreed to all of his wife's requests. For a man as superior as the Lord, people were curious if he was going to agree to all of the requests. Many curious eyes turned and looked at Difui. They wondered how he was going to solve the conflict. Difui hesitated for a moment and looked at Gu Shijio fixedly. Although he could not see her face under the veil, he could clearly picture that she was now staring back at him with her big, bright eyes, anticipating his answer. He smiled. "I will," he answered in all seriousness. There was a complete silence followed by his answer. Soon, the place started to bustle with noise and excitement again. Some were whistling and cheering. Certainly, some shook their heads at the answer. Gu Kanmo raised his hand to tell the crowd to keep their voices down. He had some questions for the bride as well. The crowd became quiet again. There was an expectant stir from the audience, as they looked forward to his upcoming questions. Gu Kanmo looked at Gu Shijie with close interest. Miss Gu, will you take Huang Tu the Lord for your lawful husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, to love and to honor him as long as he will live, to be his wife eternally, and that you will not fall in love, or remarry, any other man? For a while, the audience remained speechless. They could not accept the Lord's discontinued existence in the world. Even when all humans in the world were extinct, the Lord would still be around. Gu Kanmo must have been a fool to ask such a silly question. Was it appropriate to present such a negative question on their big day? The audience looked at him rather inquisitively. Hua Wuyan, who had witnessed the entire ceremony, commented, Headmaster Gu, what kind of question was that? The Lord will live eternally. Your offensive questions have just cursed the Lord with mortality. Gu Kanmo had to suffer the blame in silence. He only acted the way Gu Shijie wanted him to. Gu Shijie was the one who had instructed Gu Kanmo to act in that manner. She wanted to have the questions during the ceremony to profess her undivided love to Di Fui in front of everyone. Agreeing to all the conditions in the vow was equal to swearing an oath to heaven and earth. No one was allowed to go against his or her words once the oath was made. Gu Kanmo also realized that it was not exactly a propitious thing to say. However, the Lord was, after all, immortal. What he said would not do any harm to the Lord at all. So he did exactly what Gu Shijie told him to. Di Fui's expression changed when he heard the vows. He looked at Gu Shijie and communicated with her through directed audio. Shijie. Once she agreed to the vows, the oath would be immediately established. After he was gone, she would have to live alone for tens of thousands of years until death came upon her. He would not allow her to commit herself into something so foolish. Di Fui was worried that she would answer to the vows. Quickly, he made a snap that aimed to seal her acupuncture point, so she would not be able to speak. What he did not know was that Gu Shijie now had another argument with an unknown voice in her head. It was the same voice that started disturbing her when she was still trapped in the clouds. It grumbled in an indistinct voice from time to time, so she could not quite tell the gender of the voice. Gu Shijie thought she would never come across the voice again, but it reappeared when Gu Kanmo started to read the vows. No way. You cannot agree to take the oath. He is not the destined one. The voice warned her. Gu Shijie sneered and answered in an icy tone. If not him, then who? Long Moyan? Long Moyan has violated the heavenly order. He deserved to be deposed and punished. The destiny between you and Huang Tu has come to an end. The ways of heaven have arranged another marriage for you. 200 years later, both of you will meet again and fall happily in love. If you promise Huang Tu to be his wife, you will be considered as violating the heavenly laws. You are burning bridges if you do that, the voice explained hastily. Why must heaven arrange a marriage on my behalf? Gu Shijie did not understand the intention behind every arrangement, nor did she bother even to find out. She found these arranged marriages irritating. You are the future Lord. You will have a very long lifespan. Without a happy marriage, you will easily go to extremes in everything. Huang Tu is the Lord, but he has also been single for so many years, hasn't he? He and I only met when his life is almost coming to an end. What kind of logic is this? In fact, heaven had also arranged a marriage for him, but he refused to obey and has always been in constant defiance of the heaven's will. He refused to fall in love with the woman, the voice answered helplessly. Gu Shijie suddenly realized something. About the woman that he was assigned with, was she Lan Jinka? The voice became a little weaker. Yes. It is true. He and Lan Jinka were supposed to be a couple. Unfortunately, he refused to obey to the arranged marriage and only befriended her. Gu Shijie heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed like Di Fui had always been in defiance of heaven's will. No one could make him do anything that he refused to. I will only follow my heart. I like whom I like. No one can make any arrangement on my behalf. She answered with a condescending sneer. You must not be so stubborn. Huang Tu does not have long to live. It is merely a temporary fate that has brought both of you together. Consider yourself lucky that you still have a few months to spare with him. There is no need for you to spend your entire life alone for him. The voice was doing its best to convince her. Gu Shijio closed her eyes to ignore it. I am the master of my own fate. The conversation between them only lasted for a few seconds. Di Fui was surprised that she did not answer his first call, so he directed another audio message to get her attention. She was smart. She knew that Di Fui would definitely stop her from making the oath, so she made her defense quietly and bounced back the snap that Di Fui had just cast. Then she looked up and answered Gu Kanmo with a firm voice. I will. I pledge myself to the oath. Di Fui was at a loss for words. The sky used to be clear and bright, but it all changed when she made the oath. Dark clouds started to roll and all of a sudden, the sky above Celestial Master, Swa's residence burst into red thundering flashes of lightning. The oath had just been established. Di Fui clasped her hand tightly as he called her out, Shijio. Gu Shijio held his hand tightly in return and directed another audio to him. I do not believe that you are going to die. You must live on for me. Di Fui took a deep breath and answered, I will fight on. The ceremony carried on. Everything seemed to be going so well. Both of them prayed and bowed to the heaven and earth. Before they proceeded to the bridal chamber, Di Fui carried her in his arms once again under the watchful eyes of the people and strode into the room. The audience was not surprised by their unconventional interactions anymore. They were not shocked to see Di Fui carrying his bride in his arms. Instead, the audience quickly sent the newlywed their blessings. The decoration of the bridal chamber was done according to Gu Zijia's preferences. The furniture was delicate and elegant. There were too many beautiful things to be fully appreciated all at once. Di Fui carried her into the bridal chamber. All the chaperones quickly approached them and greeted them promptly. Di Fui put her down gently on the bed and uncovered the red veil. She was stunning. Her eyes flickered a little in the light. It was an astonishing sight to witness her ethereal beauty. He could not take his eyes off her at all. The servants and the chaperones quickly congratulated Di Fui. They then proceeded to invite him to the hall to celebrate with the guests. It was customary. However, Di Fui was obviously a man who refused to be accustomed to any rules. He signaled the servants to back down and carried Gu Shijio to the side of the table. On the table, there was a set made of a delicate wine pot and glasses. The wine was prepared for the newlywed to drink cross-cupped from one another's glasses. Gu Shijio giggled in his embrace. You really like to carry me around, don't you? He held her tightly at all times, refusing to let her leave her side at all. I wish to carry you for the rest of my life, Di Fui sighed. It was easy for a normal couple to promise eternal love and to grow old together. However, it was not easy for Di Fui and Gu Shijio at this stage. Gu Shijio hugged him around his neck and planted a kiss on his chin to cheer him up. You have made your promise, so you have to carry me for the rest of our lives. You are not allowed to leave me alone. Di Fui felt as if a knife was piercing through his heart. He hid his pain with a smile and filled the glasses with the wine. She took the glass of wine from him. With a glass in his hand, he announced, Come, let us have a toast. I have been keeping the wine for a few centuries. Have a taste to see if you like it. The red wine was exquisite. Therefore its name was justified, bewitching eyes. The taste of the wine was smooth and sweet, exuding a faint, charming scent. It was truly unforgettable. With their arms tightly wrapped around one another, they leaned their foreheads against each other and finished their glasses of wine. Gu Shijio liked wine. She fell immediately in love with this particular wine, so she focused her eyes on the wine pot and asked Di Fui for more. Can I have another glass? The taste was so good. Di Fui laughed out loud. Silly. You can only drink cross-cupped wine once. You will get to drink the wine again in the future. I have buried a few hundred jugs in the ground. You can drink as much as you want. Gu Shijio held his hand tightly and answered, We shall drink the wine together. Di Fui hesitated a little at first. All right, he then responded. Gu Shijio patted his hand gently and said, All right, now that we are done with the drinks, you should get out there and attend to our guests, so others will not get any time for gossip. Instead of doing so, Di Fui carried her again. No, tonight is our wedding night. You are the only one that I want to attend to. They went towards the bed. Gu Shijie was very happy, but she teased him back. You sound like a male servant from a brothel. If the comment were to be made by someone else, he or she would be immediately slapped. However, Di Fui was not bothered by Gu Zijie's comment at all. Instead, he teased her back. Am I? Let me attend to your needs to satisfy you. Di Fui gently placed Gu Shijie on the bed and raised her hands to remove her clothes. Gu Shijie quickly grabbed his hand and coughed a little. You are very tired today. You should take a rest first. These days, Di Fui would spend his days teaching Gu Zijie the skills of the Lord, and at night, he would enter into bed war with her. She worried that his body would not be able to stand it, so she tried to reject several times, but the results were unchanged. There was hardly anything that Di Fui wanted to do which could not be done. Fortunately, when she reconciled with him, her menstrual cycle just passed. Otherwise, it was not possible for him to have sex with her every night. Gu Shijie calculated her menstrual cycle and felt that it was easy for her to conceive in these days. As they made love regularly, it should be easy for her to get pregnant. Di Fui looked at her and did not intend to give up. Shijie, tonight is our wedding night. The first night of a wedding and graduation day was the two greatest things in life. Di Fui was only interested in the wedding night though, so he definitely did not want to let go of the opportunity. His eyes shined like stars in the candlelight, and a fire was definitely burning inside. His body was very hot, and it also proved to Gu Shijie that he did not want to waste the night. Gu Shijie used to think that she was not one to fall for a man's looks. However, when she looked at this face, her heartbeat involuntarily quickened. Gu Shijie was soft-hearted. In fact, she liked to share intimate moments with him too. It was the best experience to be intimate with a loved one. She was just afraid that he was tired. She raised her hand and touched his cheek. You have been very tired these 2 days. I am just afraid that you are tired. Di Fui cleared his throat and kissed her. Stupid, if you don't let me do it, I will be even more tired. It was the tiredness of endurance. The curtain on the bed was put down, and 2 shadows were overlapping inside. Tonight, his energy was exceptionally long-lasting, and also burning hot. They only went 1 round, but he gave her 3 times of best experiences and made her feel as if she was floating on a cloud. While she was enjoying the ecstasy, a thought came into her mind. These 2 days are my ovulation period, and he has been so diligent, I could get pregnant. However, if we diligently have sex, it is easy to have a girl. But she wanted a son. She was not someone who thought more highly of males than females. However, she did want a son who looked like Di Fui. She loved him very deeply, so naturally, she wanted a Di Fui Jr. After an hour, Di Fui finally stopped. Gu Shijie was exhausted and did not want to move at all. Hence, Di Fui helped her to clean up and asked her, "Let me bring you for a bath?" Gu Shijie blushed and put her arm around his neck. "No, I'm tired. Can you use cleaning spell instead?" She would never forget the incident where he took her to take a bath after they had sex the day before. At that time, she wanted to use the cleaning spell to clean up, but Di Fui said that it was a great experience to take a normal bath. She was convinced, so she followed him to take a shower. While they were taking a bath, he took the opportunity to have sex again. She was too tired until she almost fell asleep in the hot spring pool. Because of his bad behavior last time, Gu Shijie never wanted to be fooled again. Di Fui smiled but did not force her. He cleaned her by using cleaning spell, and helped her to wear soft pajamas. Then, the 2 of them lied side by side on the bed. Gu Shijie slept on his arm and talked to him. "Fui, do you want a girl or a boy?" Di Fui was slightly stunned. Gu Shijie looked excited. "Perhaps we will have children in the future. Do you want a boy or a girl?" Di Fui's eyes were dark. He used his finger to play with her silky hair that fell on her cheek. "I would like them both." She knew that he would say so. Gu Shijie bit her lips, and her eyes were full of expectation. "I would like to have a boy. It would be the best if he looks like you." Di Fui squinted and smiled at Gu Zijie's response. "I can't be copied. I am the most attractive man in the world and no one can surpass me. Gu Shizhou pushed him. Hey, don't be so proud. If I have a son, I must let him surpass you. Di Fui responded. It doesn't matter if he is more capable than me, but the position he carries in your heart can't exceed mine. Gu Shizhou squinted back. You are jealous of your own son. Anyway, it is too early to be jealous. There is nothing confirmed yet. Otherwise, let us have a daughter. Our daughter would be graceful and cute. People used to say that a daughter resembled the ex-girlfriend of the father. I believe you will pamper her very much. Di Fui was helpless. I think you will be the one who is jealous that time. Gu Shizhou shook her head. No, the more you pamper our daughter, the more joy I have. By that time, the three of us would be inseparable. We will travel together and have activities together. Our daughter will be lovely. The more she spoke, the more she yearned for it. Her eyes shone brighter in excitement. Both of them talked on the bed for a while. Gu Shizhou simply lied on his chest and looked at his face. Her attention fell on his hair. His hair was black and silky. It looked very smooth and shiny. She grabbed some hair and played with it before she asked. By the way, why did your hair turn black again? Can it be adjusted? I never knew you had this ability. In fact, your white hair looks very attractive and you look charming with it. She paused and continued. No matter what, you are still the most handsome to me. She hugged his waist. Fui, since I love you so much, can you please stay? I can't live without you. If a patient with a terminal illness knew that he was especially needed, he would naturally develop the courage to fight the disease. There would be a strong desire for survival. And a strong desire to survive was the key to defeating the disease. Gu Shizhou actually did not want to put pressure on him. However, she wanted him to understand how much she needed him so that he would fight against fate. Perhaps he could create a miracle. Di Fui remained silent, but he felt as if there was a knife stabbing his heart. However, he smiled when he responded. I will work hard for it. For the woman in his arms, he had to work hard. Some people said that women are a tomb for a hero. In fact, women can also be the motivation for a hero to fight forward. The woman in his arms was the only one he would want to retain in his life. She was his favorite person in the world, and the only one that he could not give up. He kissed her forehead at that thought. I am delighted that I can meet you in my life. She was the one who let him taste true love. She let him understand that the world was so beautiful and being alive was so amazing. Her arms were still wrapped around him as she responded, Me too. Although he had hurt her a lot, she never regretted meeting him and falling in love with him. The girl who was always cold and steady became talkative in front of him. She even liked to be pampered by him, and loved to hold him like a little girl. Di Fui had changed her. She was no longer the cold-hearted assassin that she was before. How could he let her be alone in this world now? How could he bear to leave her? Gu Shizhou seemed to think of something just then. Since even the Lord has to die someday and pass everything to a successor, who was the Lord before you? There must have been someone, right? Was that person a man or woman? How did the transition happen? Gu Shizhou had never heard anything about the previous lord. Di Fui was stunned and shook his head. I don't have any memory of this. Ah! Gu Shizhou was surprised. Di Fui frowned and thought about it. He said, My memory started when I woke up in the wilderness. The people in this world were not like this. It was a mess. After that, I conquered the world by myself, and slowly got my own powers and became the Lord. Well, he had lived for nearly 10,000 years. Those were the primitive ages. If Gu Shizhou stretched it a few generations further backward, it would still be the time of the apes. So, am I the second lord of this world? Gu Shizhou frowned as she asked. She always felt that something was not right, but she could not identify it. Di Fui brushed her hair with his hand, but did not speak. Gu Shizhou was silent for a while too before she asked. How do you contact the person in charge of the heavenly laws? Di Fui sighed. When I was reading the stars to foresee the future, occasionally, there was a voice in my mind to tell me what to do, but I never cared about it. If the voice talked too much, I would do the opposite, so the voice would seldom contact me. Gu Shizhou remembered the voice that occasionally came into her mind. It seemed to be the messenger of the heavenly order, and whatever it ordered appeared to be one's fate. Upon pondering, Gu Shijiu suddenly thought of something. Do you think the heavenly laws are set by the upper bound to rule the lower bound? Di Fui sighed when he heard the question. It is said that people in the upper bound must also follow the heavenly laws. Gu Shijiu clenched her fists. The person who made the heavenly laws must be a jerk then. He does not care about individual preferences. Di Fui laughed but did not speak. In fact, the heavenly laws did have its merits. If there were no rules, there would not be a framework. Without proper regulations, the world would have been in chaos. Di Fui had also set a lot of rules for this world that needed to be obeyed. The kingdom would have a set of laws, and each family would have their own rules. It was the only way to develop the world in an orderly manner. Furthermore, if at any time the rules restricted development, it would slowly be modified and removed. At this moment, Gu Shijiu was mainly concerned about the idea of Di Fui dying. She would slowly understand the reason behind it in the future. Gu Shijiu seemed to think of something again, and she glared at him. Oh yeah, what happened to Tianjiyu's disciple? There is rumor saying that Celestial Masters was separated the couple. Di Fui was silent for a moment and sighed. Shijiu, this is what I am going to teach you soon. Heaven's Gift disciples are not allowed to get married, and every Heaven's Gift disciple must suffer hurt from a relationship before he or she can become a true Heaven's Gift disciple. Gu Shijiu was rather surprised by that remark. Why? This is what comes with their natal charts. They become Heaven's Gift disciples that can enjoy the glory of being a sage, but they must also bear the responsibilities and obligations they have and the hardships. So you deliberately created hurtful situations for them? Gu Shijiu looked at him with disbelief. Di Fui shook his head in disagreement. I don't need me to create it. In fact, I don't interfere at all. The incident between Tianjiyue and his disciple was an accident. Gu Shijiu looked at him in silence. Di Fui continued. He had an affair, and it was something he needed to experience. It was originally unrelated to me, but the woman worshipped the devil, and she pretended to be a young and innocent lady by his side. His disciple was trying to drive a wedge between Celestial Master Yu and me. At that time, she was in a relationship with Tianjiyue, but she secretly came and seduced me. Fortunately, her disguise could not fool me. I tried to warn Tianjiyue. However, he had been blinded by her. I could only pretend to be trapped. Tianjiyue was jealous, and when it was the right time, I exposed the woman in front of Tianjiyue, and then I killed her. Tianjiyue has never fallen in love with any woman since then, but has also kept a grudge against me. He often wanted to retaliate just to make things difficult for me. I was also quite bored with how smooth things were going, so I have been his enemy for years. It's actually easier to train him than to be his friend. Tianjiyue was not as gifted as the other 3 Heaven's Gift disciples, but after fighting with me for years, his skills had improved very quickly. Now he's far better than the other 3, but still cannot beat me. Gu Shijiu was speechless. Di Fui, how much free time did you have? Finally, she understood the story behind Tianjiyu's hatred for him. Others might not know the inside story. They thought that Di Fui was the one who stole Tianjiyu's lover away, and that was why they had been enemies for so many years. Gu Shijiu proceeded to subconsciously caress Di Fui's chest. Di Fui, in fact, you are a bad guy. You are not a good person. Her soft fingers poked on his chest. He felt an itchy sensation but grew notably excited. His eyes somehow seemed wider as he chuckled. Stupid. How can I be a good person and sit in this position? You are so naive, baby. Gu Shijiu understood that to break through the encirclement of the wolves and sit on the chief position, Di Fui would have to do things that were not entirely proper or ethical. This guy was actually quite unscrupulous, but with good intention. Gu Shijiu was still pondering over the newly found information. She was still learning on his chest. After a moment, Di Fui spoke. Baby, you are playing with fire. Huh? Gu Shijiu looked at him in surprise. However, she quickly reacted because she felt the most honest reaction of a man tingle somewhere near her thighs. She coughed and was about to move away from him, but he buckled her up. His palms buckled her back, and he pulled her head down. He then kissed her and whispered, "Baby, since you are not tired, we can go another round." What? Another round? What kind of physical strength did this man possess? Gu Shijie quickly pushed him away. "No, I am tired. I want to sleep." Di Fui did not let her go. "That's fine. You don't have to move this time. Let me do it. I am worried about your health. Your physical strength will be exhausted." The kind of activities they were doing could have easily killed normal people purely from exhaustion. What he had to do now was to preserve his strength. Di Fui touched her nose. "If that is the case, this time you go above me, and you control everything?" Gu Shijie was speechless. Di Fui did not wait for her approval, and proceeded to initiate the proposed activity. Gu Shijie initially thought that this wedding night was just an ordinary night. She never expected that it would bring her repeated priceless ecstasy. They were practically busy the entire night. When Di Fui was finally satisfied, it was already late at night. She did not speak to him anymore because she was exhausted and asleep. She lied on his arms and slept like a pig. No matter how he pushed her, she would not wake up. Di Fui observed Gu Shijie as she slept. He would never get bored of looking at her. Time passed very quickly. The most valuable asset in this world was time. No matter how reluctant one was, time would still pass us by. In the blink of an eye, 2 months had passed. Many things happened in the past 2 months. For example, Lan Weihu and Yanchen had finally gotten married. Gu Shijie and Di Fui personally became their witnesses, which made them absolutely delighted. Of course, their wedding was also very sensational and lively. Yanchen's parents initially thought that their son would inform them when he got married. They also expected that he would come and invite them personally. After all, when a couple got married, they still needed the blessing from their parents. As a result, they waited until the eve of their son's wedding. Unfortunately, Yanchen did not go and invite them. In fact, they did not even receive an invitation card. Mrs. Yen was furious and very disappointed with her son. On the other hand, Mr. Yen was angry with his wife instead. He had been very cold to her, and had avoided going home. He preferred to stay with his concubine. Out of frustration, Mrs. Yen went straight to Yanchen's newly built mansion. She thought that her son would meet her at the very least. After all, she did raise him and gave birth to him. Unlike Little Fox, who even benefited of her generosity. Fortunately, she did not want to mess up her son's wedding this time. After all, Lan Weihu came from the Blue Fox family and was very helpful to her son. However, she still wanted to let Lan Weihu know who was the head of the family. She was her mother-in-law, so she must have the authority. At the very least, Little Fox should respect her. This was the wishful thinking of Mrs. Yen. She was prepared to make an effort to make it happen, even if she needs to play the victim and act in front of her son. What she did not expect was, when she finally arrived at her son's house, she was not even able to enter the house. It was easy to attend Yanchen and Little Fox's wedding, as long as the guests came with an invitation card. Otherwise, the doorman would never let them in. She was so angry that she clarified her identity and asked the doorman to go in and report it. As a result, after the doorman went in as instructed, he came out a moment later and gave Mrs. Yen 200 ingot and asked her to go back home. With this, Yanchen made it clear that he did not want to see her and would not allow her to attend his wedding with Lan Weihu. Mrs. Yen did not expect that her son would be so cruel. It seemed that he was determined to cut ties with her. She was thinking of causing a scene at the entrance. However, she also cared about her image. If everyone knew that she was rejected to attend her son's wedding, she would not have faced to stay in the Yan's residence in the future. She had no choice but to go away. It was at this moment that she realized the consequence of the mistake she had made. She would never be forgiven. Initially, she thought that her son was just mad at her. However, she now knows that this will not be resolved anytime soon. It was very likely that she would lose this son. Gu Shijie and Di Fui did not stay too long at the wedding. Their time was extremely precious. Gu Shijie was still busy searching for a way to extend Di Fui's life. Unfortunately, She had almost exhausted all her resources. No one had a way. She even ignored Di Fui's order and tried to find the madman. It turned out that he was really just a man who had lost his mind. What kind of experience was it to watch the closest person you love walk step by step to death while being too helpless to do anything about it? Weak people would probably collapse into depression merely out of fear. Even Gu Shijie was getting more and more anxious every passing day. Fortunately, Di Fui still looked the same. He was still young and handsome, full of energy. However, the big star that represented him was already dull and crumbling. It looked like it could fall at any time. Di Fui had just recently taught her about stargazing in the past month. It was extremely complicated. It was not just about observing the constellation or brightness of the stars. Through stargazing, one could see the rise and fall of a dynasty, as well as the fate of significant people. It was not something that could be learned overnight. Although Di Fui did not have much time, he had to make sure that Gu Shijie picked up all the skills she needed. Thus, he delayed the teaching until now. He expected that Gu Shijie would spend a lot of time watching the stars in the future. The more she watched, the more nervous she got. The more she looked at it, the more desperate she was. This was not unlike a situation where a person discovers that a terrible fate lies before them. They would choose to live differently and enjoy whatever time they have remaining. However, if that fate were to befall on their loved one instead, he or she would be very anxious and restless. It would only get worse with each passing day. Gu Shijie was now in this situation. The more she looked at the astrological map, the more uneasiness and fear she had. The pressure she had was enough to make her breathless. Upon observing the crumbling king star, she was dying to fly up to hold it or support it from underneath. After she learned astrology, she finally realized that the fall of the stars was irreversible, and she did not have any method to change Di Fui's fate. She also talked about the condition with the occasional voice in her head. She begged her to show mercy. She could even transfer her remaining life to Di Fui if that were allowed. However, the messenger from the upper bound just sighed. It had to advise her to give up. Perhaps it was better just to cherish the time they had left together. Gu Shijie realized that she could not sleep well anymore. In fact, sometimes she could not even go to bed. The pain that she was about to endure from losing her beloved could not be described. On a scale, it was probably 100 times more painful than losing a relationship. Of course, she did not want to add too much psychological pressure to Di Fui. On the surface, she still showed a relatively calm look, except for the fact that she was getting thinner. After all, Di Fui could not do anything about his fate either. Although he looked the same, his energy level had been falling of late, and he began to feel easily tired. If he had nothing to be concerned with, he would accept this fact very calmly. After all, he had lived for nearly 10,000 years, and he had already seen everything there was to see. He did not care about life and death. However, now he had someone in his heart. He was eager for her warmth. He could not bear to leave her alone. He did not want her to be in pain. He was the one who caused the most pain for her, so he felt guilty even though he could not do anything about it. Needless to say, he could not sleep very well either. He would often wake up in the middle of the night and find Gu Zijie's eyes closed. However, her lashes would be moving ever so slightly, indicating to him that she was just pretending. There was once when he opened his eyes too quickly, so Gu Shijie did not even have time to pretend to be asleep. Both of their teary eyes met each other. Her small hand clasped his robes, and the bottom of her eyes was full of helplessness and fragility. Di Fui's heart felt like a few knives stabbed it. At the moment when their two pairs of eyes met, Gu Shijie subconsciously wanted to close her eyes and pretend to be asleep. However, Di Fui hugged her tightly. He kissed the dark circles under her eyes, and also kissed her tears. Shijie, we have never been to the upper bound. There are also many things that are still uncertain in this world. Perhaps, I might not disappear forever. Maybe I will just go to the upper bound. No matter where I go, I will try my best to come back. Don't be afraid. Gu Shijie had a rare glimmer of hope in her eyes. Really? Di Fui kissed her forehead. Think about it. I didn't know the world you came from, and you are like a miracle. So there may be a second miracle. All of this sounded good, but Gu Shijie remembered the messenger from the upper bound telling her that there would be no way for Difui to come back. However, what Difui said also made sense. After all, there were many unknowns in this world. She put her head on his chest and replied, "If there is such a day, you must come back. I will be waiting for you." Difui rubbed her head with his chin, and he replied with a heavy voice, "I promise." He lifted her chin with his fingers and kissed her lips. "Can I sleep now?" Gu Shijie responded and closed her eyes. Difui massaged her acupuncture point, and finally let her really fall asleep. He could not do this regularly as it would affect her health in the long term. There was a little side effect, so if it was not the last resort, Difui did not want to use this method. Gu Shijie had not rested for several days. If she continued to be like this, her body would collapse, and her health would deteriorate even further. She could also lose her mind if she lacked sleep. Therefore, based on the current situation, Difui made the decision he needed to make. As he looked at Gu Shijie in his arms, he reflected on the past. He had done so many plans and used so many methods to get to this point. He even broke up with her in the way of betrayal, just to prevent her from experiencing the suffering that she is facing today. He never expected that his plans would change so fast. In the end, she would still suffer this consequence despite everything he had done to prevent it. He even let Gu Shijie die. If he could turn back the time, he would rather have never provoked her. But time could not be turned back. There was some evil in the air tonight. Gu Shijie had a long dream. In her dream, she is walking into a sea of flames, surrounded by fire mountains. It looked like the flaming mountains in the novel Journey to the West. There was a raging fire that seemed to be erupting from the ground. Gu Shijie was with the muscle and Lu Wu. With the blessings of the muscle and Lu Wu, she did not feel too hot even though she was walking in a flame. She did know why she was here. She just felt like she was looking for something. After taking a long walk, a purple ocean seemed to appear in front of her. Upon closer observation, she realized that it was a crowded purple mushroom field. There were beautiful purple mushrooms all over the place. However, the mushrooms looked a bit strange. Upon closer observation, the mushrooms looked like the hands that were pinching a spell. Gu Shijie was stunned. Her heart pumped uncontrollably for a moment. Purple cloud mushroom. It was the purple cloud mushroom. According to legend, it could bring one's life back. Its function was comparable to the 9,000-year-old peach that was owned by the Queen Mother of Heaven. If she used it to refine the medicinal herbs and produced a grade 9 pill, it could make an ordinary person immortal. The problem was that this kind of mushroom seemed to have only existed in legends. Gu Shijie had never seen it before. She only saw it in a book of rare herb collections that the firmament stone showed her. She wanted to find this mushroom and try it. However, no one knew where the mushroom grew, and Difui had never even heard about it. Gu Shijie had been searching all over the place lately, but it was like finding a needle in a haystack. She did not expect to see it here. Ordinarily, mushrooms grew in cool and humid places, so those were the types of areas that Gu Shijie had searched. She did not expect it to grow next to a volcano. She almost rushed over eagerly to pick it up. However, it seemed that she was unable to take the next step. Suddenly she woke up. She opened her eyes, and what she saw was Difui sitting on the bed and taking down some notes. He sat there at her side. He was holding a pen in his hand and writing a book. Meanwhile, Gu Shijie was hugging one of his thigh like a koala. The two of them were current at the Biwu Palace, the real residence of the Lord, Huang Tu. He brought her here 8 days ago and told her to treat this place as her home. The grass and trees here were all beautiful, and the palace was full of white clouds, like a fairyland. Furthermore, this place was full of spiritual power, so it was an excellent place to recuperate. Difui looked pale since a few days ago, but after he was back here, his appearance seemed to have improved. It was a beautiful place, a real paradise on earth. If Gu Zijie's heart were not preoccupied with Difui's impending death, she would really fall in love with this place. The scenery here was absolutely beautiful, but those who could enter here must reach at least a level 9 spiritual power. or else they would not be able to manage the amount of spiritual energy present here. Gu Shijiu and Di Fui were now in the bedroom in his palace. Gu Shijiu was stunned for a moment, and finally realized that what she saw was just a dream. She was notably disappointed. Di Fui looked down at her and wondered, "What's wrong? Did you have a nightmare? Why are you sweating?" Gu Shijiu kept quiet for a moment, but then she suddenly asked him, "Since you are so knowledgeable, do you know a place?" She storied about all the details in her dream. She said it was very detailed, and Di Fui felt that it was strange. "How did you know this place?" Gu Zijia's heart skipped a beat while her eyes widened. "Does this place really exist? Do you know it?" Her voice trembled slightly due to the excitement. Initially, she felt that her dream was surreal. It was probably because she had been looking for the purple cloud mushroom recently, so she would see this in her dreams. Thus she did not hold much hope. She just casually asked Di Fui and did not expect anything in return. However, it appears that Di Fui actually knew this place. "The morphological scenery you mentioned sounds like a forbidden place." "Which forbidden place?" "Which forbidden place?" "The Buddha Fire Land." Di Fui had recently also taught her about the method of entering forbidden places. He also taught her about the rules that needed to be abided there, and the characteristics of the area. This was on top of learning about how to read the stars. Gu Shijiu could remember a lot of things, but this was the first time she heard of the Buddha Fire Land. She changed her position and lied on his lap. "Tell me more." Di Fui did not keep anything to himself and told her everything that he knew. It turned out that this Buddha Fire Land was the most underrated place in the 8 forbidden places known to Di Fui. As seen in Gu Zijia's dream, there were fires everywhere. The entire land was bare, and no plants could survive. There was a very strange feature in this place, which is that only women can enter. There was a man who accidentally broke into it before, and he was burned alive by the flames. Back in the day, Di Fui thought that he was good enough to withstand the heat there, so he tried to enter it. However, he could only last for 15 minutes. In that brief period, he patrolled some of the mountains there, and found that there was nothing but fire. He did not see anything else, so he never went in again. Since Gu Shijiu suddenly asked him, he seemed to be a little surprised. "What made you suddenly ask me about this place? When have you been there?" Gu Zijia's heart was racing. She took a deep breath as she responded, "I just had a dream. I went to the place in my dream, and then I found the purple cloud mushroom in it." "Do you think it was truly the purple cloud mushroom in it? Do you think that God is trying to give me a hint using my dream?" Di Fui remained silent. "Dreams are often fictitious. Perhaps it is due to your obsession too." Gu Shijiu shook her head. "No. If it was only my obsession, why would I dream of a place which I never been to before? How would it even be possible?" She grasped his hand and continued, "I want to go and try my luck." Di Fui frowned. "There are some dangers. I have never really explored it. You told me that the fire there was very special and only women are allowed to enter. I am a woman, and I have a high spiritual power. There should not be any danger for me." Gu Zijia's eyes were shining with hope. She could not walk away from the opportunity. Di Fui looked at her, and knew that she had made up her mind. He was not able to convince her to let go of the plan. Since she had hope again, she was not as dull as before. Vitality seemed to re-inject it into her body, which brightened her eyes. She seemed to be more energetic as a whole. Di Fui took some time to consider the pros and cons of her next move. "It takes at least 5 days to go in and out of the forbidden place." Gu Shijiu took a light breath as she responded positively. "It is all right. You still have 12 days to live. We should have enough time." Di Fui was worried. "I will go with you." Gu Shijiu shook her head. "Don't. It is more important that you try your best to nurture your body now. You can't afford to diminish your spiritual power. Let me handle everything." Gu Shijiu was wide awake now. She sat straight up, dressed up, and got out of bed. "How can I go to this forbidden place?" "I will go now." Di Fui stopped her and rubbed her eyebrows. "You are always hustling and bustling. It is not something that can be rushed. I need to prepare you for it." Gu Shijiu was anxious. What are you going to do? We do not have much time. We can't waste a single second. Difui sighed. Don't worry. It won't delay you for too long. Give me a day. You can't simply rush into that place. You will need to wear special clothes. Also, you need to learn a spell to avoid the fire. Gu Shijie was making a quick risk assessment based on the time Difui had left. It took a total of 6 days for the whole process. If she could get the job done faster, she might be able to come out in 4 to 5 days. In this case, she still had sufficient time for other preparations. Since this was the only hope she can grasp today, it is natural to get everything done and fight for success. She firmly believed that this was a message given to her by God. Perhaps she could really save Difui through this method. She had been rather down lately, and now she was finally full of energy again. She looked at what Difui was writing, and it seemed to be some skills and spells to be practiced. His writing was beautiful, much like himself. Every single line. Mu Feng was next to Gu Shijie. He could hear the conversation between the two lovebirds. He was wondering why Gu Shijie would blush at his master's reasonable request. Gu Shijie did not want to talk to Difui anymore, so she switched off the spell. After she thought for a while, she went to find the Muscle and Lu Wu. These two beasts were now at the highest level among all beasts, so they could enter Biwu Palace easily. However, Wind Caller could not make it due to its lower spiritual power. Thus Gu Shijie left Wind Caller in her residence to assist Luo Zhanyu. The Biwu Palace was heavenly to them. They could practice as much as possible there. When Gu Shijie found them, they were chatting and catching fish in the Linghu Lake. As they saw her coming, they shrank into the water and cautiously greeted her. Master. Gu Shijie looked at the two of them. The Muscle's shell had turned rose gold. It was majestic and dazzling under the daylight. Lu Wu had also returned to its original appearance and was swimming in the water. It had grown into the size of a pony. It occasionally looked like a peacock when its 9 tails were stretched out. Lu Wu's original appearance resembled a human with the face of a tiger which had claws and 9 tails. Its face was beautiful, with big eyes and long eyelashes. Gu Shijie was relieved. After the two of them came to the Biwu Palace, their progress was expeditious. Since Gu Shijie was in a good mood, she greeted the two of them and asked if they had encountered any problems lately. Lu Wu and the Muscle looked at each other. The Muscle was more courageous, so it asked, Master, are you in a good mood today? Gu Shijie raised her eyebrows. Have I appeared to be in a bad mood lately? Lu Wu and the Muscle nodded in unison. Master, your recent mood has been terrible. These days their owner either did not even see them. When she did, she would tell them for their slow progress. Moreover, it was getting rare to see their owner smile. She would only barely smile when she was with Difui. On a usual day, she always seemed like a person who lost her soul, and her temper was terrible. This made Lu Wu and the Muscle keep their distance from her. It was rare for them to see a genuine smile on Gu Zijie's face. Hence, Lu Wu and the Muscle storied about her recent state. Gu Shijie felt very guilty. She had been desperate to help Difui since a few days ago. Although she had been smiling, it did not fool her two pets. She used to be the kind of person whose emotions were always under control. Never in her wildness imagination did she expect to be in such a situation. Gu Shijie then looked at the two of them. Will you accompany me to a forbidden place tomorrow? Lu Wu and the Muscle nodded. The Lord has already told us about it. He also taught us some techniques that can be used in the Buddha Fire Land. We have been spending our time practicing in the water. Gu Zijie's heart was filled with warmth. It seemed Difui had arranged everything for her. Well, let's practice together. I will take you for dinner later. The Muscle and Lu Wu looked at each other again. They were so touched and wanted to cry. Their owner had finally returned to normal. They were ecstatic. The Muscle immediately placed its order. Master, I want to eat a roasted deer. Grill an entire sheep for me too. It mentioned 7 or 8 dishes in one breath, which were what Gu Shijie was best at, and they were also its most favorite dishes. Gu Shijie was in such a good mood that she accepted all the requests from the mussel. Okay. You all practice well in the day, and I will cook for you at night. Yeah. The mussel and Lu Wu's eyes shone brightly. God knew how long they had not eaten food cooked by their owner. They happily turned 2 rounds, and then they jumped into the water again and practiced fiercely. Gu Shijie looked up at the sky and found that today's sunshine was very bright. The flowers and plants at the surrounding were fresh-looking. The scenery here was so beautiful, but she had not enjoyed it yet. Thus, she walked around the Biwu Palace for a bit while waiting for Difui. The scenery here was simple and elegant. It was like a fairyland in a dream. Every strand of grass, every piece of wood, every stack of bricks, and every place tile was ideally located. Water rafts, kiosks, white jade bridges, buildings. All of these adorn the scene. Since Difui loved to write, his writing was everywhere. It was on a big tree, on a few stones, etc. Under his influence, Gu Shijie also felt that she should leave her own writing here. It was the best to leave words that represented the love of 2 people. She either wrote Tianchang Dijio, which meant Difui and Gu Shijie together forever. Just when she was getting busy writing more words, someone patted her shoulder. What are you doing? She turned back to see Difui standing behind her. He seemed to laugh at her after he saw her writings. Her writing was very nice. However, it could not be compared with Difui's writing. Gu Shijie quickly looked at him. She saw that he seemed energetic. His purple robe was as eye-catching as always. He did not look any different from earlier, so she was not concerned that he would have suffered any injuries. She pulled his hand and asked him to see her writing. Hey, my writing is good, right? Difui gazed at the words she had written. He was stunned for a moment when he saw the words Difui and Gu Shijie together forever, and erected his thumb. They look good. It looks like a master had written this. Gu Shijie wanted to kick him. Are you praising me or derogating me? Difui looked serious. Of course I am praising you. Both of them laughed for a moment. Gu Shijie suddenly looked at his robes and asked, why did you change to your purple robe? Difui raised his eyebrow. I always wear my purple robe. What is so strange about it? It was true. Wearing a purple robe was his signature, but he had carried the identity of the Lord these days and always wore white robes instead. She had not seen him wearing a purple robe for nearly a month. She sized him up and sincerely commented, you still look better in your purple robe. When she first met him, he was in his purple robe. She had fallen in love with Celestial Master Zhua from the beginning, not the Lord. After that, although she knew that he was also the Lord, and knew that his real name was Huang too, she still called him Difui. Difui spun around and replied, I think so. However, even if I wear white robes, I am still the most handsome man in the world. Gu Shijie could not help but laugh again. She liked to watch him being so egoistic and confident. In fact, no matter what robes he wore, he was still the best in her eyes. No one could be compared with him. However, she was still very anxious about finding the life-saving mushroom at this point, so she asked him about the special clothes. Difui caressed her hair. Don't worry, I just went to get the materials. I still need to make it into wearable garments. Please wait for another 2 hours. Gu Shijie was curious. What material is that? Difui did not hide anything from her. It is the skin of Kuanpeng. Gu Zijie's eyes opened widely. Kuanpeng. Yes, the skin of Kuanpeng is the best material to help make someone fireproof. As long as you wear it, you will not be affected by the fire in the Buddha Fireland. Gu Shijie was speechless. A Kuanpeng could fly 90,000 miles per hour. It was a sacred animal, and also the ruler of aqua life. It was born with fantastic skills. When a Kuanpeng gets angry, it could set off wave up to thousands of feet high and flood the entire earth. It was a legendary animal. In fact, Gu Shijie had only heard about it but had never seen it. She also never intended to look for it. She never expected Difui to obtain its skin at this point. While Difui was talking, he unfolded the material. The sky blue skin looked soft and silky, and the color was bright. With any movements, colorful lights were flashing from its surface. According to legend, The skin of a kuanping was invulnerable. It was even resistant to spells. When it was dipped in the water, it would not sink, and when it was in a fire, it would not burn. If it were made into clothes, it would be the best suit in this world. She looked at the material, and then looked at him again. Are you okay? Di Fui rolled up the sleeves and let her see a slight wound on his arm. Well, I was hurt by its tail fins. It was bleeding earlier but is better now. The wound was very shallow. It was just like a little cut on the skin. How could this guy consider this as an injury? Gu Shijie was speechless, but she also felt relieved. She helped him to apply some medicine and asked him, Is it painful? Di Fui leaned on her body and put his wounded arm next to her lips. He answered very weakly, It is painful. Come on, blow it for me. Gu Shijie was speechless. This guy started to act cute again. Are you planning to sew this skin into a robe? We have a tight schedule. Quickly ask people to send this to a tailor. Gu Shijie turned her attention back to the serious matter. Di Fui smiled. The skin is invulnerable. No needle in the world can pierce it, and no scissors can cut it. Gu Zijie's eyes were widened. What do we do with it then? Can I just wrap with it around me? Di Fui shook his head. It is such a waste just to wrap it. It is such a good material. I will personally sew it for you. Gu Shijie was really stunned. Do you know how to sew clothes? Could this guy sew? Di Fui answered. I didn't know, but I have learned it just for you. Gu Zijie's heart melted. This guy was really good at sweet-talking. Di Fui originally wanted to do it himself, but she insisted on following him. It is too rare for the Lord to sew something personally. She must witness it. Di Fui could not reject her, and had to let her follow. Thus, Gu Shijie finally witnessed how Di Fui did his needlework. To be exact, what he was doing was not considered as sewing. There was no scissors and needle in his hands. Instead, he was using his spiritual power to do the work. Di Fui's movements were free and casual, as if he was dancing gracefully. Gu Shijie enjoyed watching it. After 2 hours, a set of fireproof clothes was finally made. Gu Shijie tried it on the spot. The color of the robe was like the blue sky after a downpour. Although the style was simple, it fit her body perfectly. What's more, this outfit was very comfortable to wear. It was as smooth as satin and came with a cooling effect. The material was also very breathable. When she put it on, it could wrap her entire body and not expose a single inch of her skin. Gu Shijie spun around and asked him casually, This outfit is a perfect fit. You did not even get my measurements. How did you know my size so well? Di Fui looked at her and smiled cheekily. I am afraid that I know your size better than yourself. Gu Shijie coughed. It seemed like she asked a stupid question. To test the fire resistance of this material, Di Fui immediately hit her with fire. The fire burned fiercely on her body, but she did not feel the heat inside. It was amazing. Gu Shijie then blurted out in excitement. I probably don't even need to use the fire avoidance spell if I wear this on me. Di Fui shook his head. The fire in the Buddha Fireland is not a usual fire. You still need to master the technique to avoid being burned alive. One could tell from Di Fui's face that it was apparently very energy-consuming to make this outfit. His handsome face was now slightly pale. Gu Shijie was also worried that he was tired. She held his arm and said, Please go and rest. She helped him to check his pulse. It seemed like he was overexhausted but still okay on the whole. Di Fui could not wait to lean on her. Well, you rest with me and I will go. Gu Shijie was speechless. She brought him back to the room, but did not accompany him to rest. From his eyes, she could clearly see that he wanted to do a naughty thing again. Gu Shijie did not want to fall into his trap. Besides, she was afraid that if she were with him, she would cause him to get even more tired. What he needed was a real rest. Thus, she sent him back into the house and then turned around and ran. Di Fui sat on the bed. He looked at her and smiled, but this smile lasted for 1 second before it disappeared. His face suddenly turned ashen, and sweat was flowing down from the forehead. He revealed a bloody and gory wound just below his rib. The injury was severe. His bone was visible. Fortunately, He had dealt with it in time, or else the consequences could be very frightening. He had used a spell earlier to deceive Gu Shijiu into thinking that he was fine. The wound was visible now, and it was not a pretty sight. Di Fui applied medicine onto the wound, and then used a spell to make it invisible again. In the past, he could ultimately be healed in 2 hours even with a bad injury. However, it was not working now. It seemed like his life had indeed come to an end. When he went to find trouble with a Kuanpeng, he was supposed to turn off the directed audio spell. However, he was afraid of Gu Shijiu being worried, so he left the spell on. When she contacted him, he had just obtained the skin and had not had time to attend to his wound. At that time, Mu Dian was applying medicine on him in tears while he casually talked to Gu Shijiu through the directed audio spell. At night, Gu Shijiu held a bonfire party and barbecued a lot of food. Those food were all full of spiritual power. They were delicious as well as nutritious. Di Fui sat there and ate a lot. The muscle was unhappy, but it did not dare to speak up. It felt as though it had been robbed. Fortunately, this time Gu Shijiu had barbecued a lot of food, so all of them had a good time. There was more than enough to go around. After the bonfire party, Gu Shijiu cleaned up after herself and stood up. Well, my schedule is tight. I should go now. The Buddha Fireland was a forbidden area that had been sealed. However, it could be opened from this Biwu Palace. Di Fui took Gu Shijiu along with her 2 spiritual beasts to the back garden. He personally checked the outfit again, and the things she had on her. He prepared a lot of things for her. There were various magical weapons and different herbs and medicine to ensure her safety. Di Fui was very caring. He carefully examined all these things again and again, to confirm that she brought everything with her. The 4 messengers nearby, and waited for the command of the Lord to open the door to the forbidden land. Shijiu, you should pay attention to everything. Your safety has to be the top priority. If you can't find the purple cloud mushroom, just head out. You can stay for a maximum of 6 days and not any longer. Okay. Gu Shijiu promised. Muscle, you have to use the ice protection technique to keep your shell cool. If there is a fire beast inside, you can resist it with your windcracker tactic. Di Fui instructed. The muscle had not taken any risks for a long time. It was excited. Well, you will be impressed, my lord. Lu Wu, you are good at using fire. Your fire is different from the fire in the Forbidden Land. When you use your fire, you can. Di Fui turned and told Lu Wu. Lu Wu was actually a little intolerant. My lord, you have already told me about it. Gu Shijiu was like an arrow that was ready to fly. At this moment, she could not help but laugh at Di Fui's excessive concern. You don't have to advise anymore. They can already memorize your words. You are so long-winded today. Di Fui went slightly stiff, but he immediately smiled and said, Stupid, I'm just too concerned about you. Well, I know you care about me, and that is why you are a bit panicked. Don't worry. I promise that I will not only bring out the purple cloud mushroom, but also come back alive. It will be harmless. It is you that we need to be concerned about. You should rest and must not work anymore. Gu Shijiu patted his shoulder and advised him. Di Fui raised his arms and hugged her tightly. I really can't bear to let you go. I'm reluctant to let you go alone. His arm was warm, and it warmed Gu Zijia's heart. She smiled. Well, if it allows men to go in, I will let you come with me. The muscle and Lu Wu were stunned. They looked at each other and asked softly, Men are not allowed to enter? Master, my lord, Lu Wu and I are both males. Di Fui faintly responded. You are a beast. Even if you are a male, you are not a man. What are you afraid of? The muscle was silent. Gu Shijiu patted his hand that was still holding her waist. Well, the schedule is tight. I should go now. Let them open the door to the forbidden place. Di Fui kissed her lips. Take care. He released her, and gestured to the 4 messengers. The 4 messengers were also very anxious. They had already known the news of the purple cloud mushroom from Gu Shijiu. They hoped that she could pick up the things as soon as possible, so that their lord could live forever. The earlier she got it done, the better. Therefore, once they received the command, They immediately opened the secret door to the Buddha Fire land. A large golden-red aperture appeared in the air, and there seemed to be a raging fire inside. It was very difficult to open this secret door, and would undoubtedly consume a lot of energy from the 4 messengers. It could not be opened for a long time, so Gu Shijiu did not dare to waste any time. She quickly pulled the muscle and Lu Wu and flew into the aperture. The moment she entered, she looked back and saw that Di Fui was standing there and watching her. However, Gu Shijiu could not see his facial expression as they were too far apart. Gu Shijiu only saw him smile at her and wave his hand. In a matter of seconds, she had already fallen into the Buddha Fire land and could not be seen anymore. The aperture gradually disappeared after Gu Shijiu went into it. Mu Feng and the others sighed in relief. Miss Gu was who created many miracles, so maybe she could do it again. Mu Dian immediately bowed to Di Fui body and said, "My lord, you are badly injured. Please go and rest." Mu Dian knew the severity of his injuries, but his master did not allow him to mention it, so he did not dare to tell anyone. "Is master injured?" Mu Feng's facial expression changed. When Mu Dian was about to explain, Di Fui waved his hand and said, "It's just a small matter. I have something that needs to be attended to immediately." He then took out a stack of books from his storage space and passed it to the 4 of them. "You must copy all these books in 4 days. It cannot be delayed." The 4 messengers were stunned when they saw the stack of books in his hands. These books were all-encompassing. There were books related to techniques, astrology, medicine refining, battle, etc. Based on the title of the books, they seemed to be the secret techniques that only the Lord could master. The fonts of these books were the same. Apparently, they were written by Di Fui personally. Mu Feng was bold enough to ask, "My lord, the skills written on these books should be secret skills. It is not appropriate for us to read them," Di Fui faintly said. "There is nothing inappropriate, you can copy it. After you finish it, please send them to my study room." "Okay, the clock is ticking. Please go now." The 4 messengers looked at each other and knew that their masters had never played by the rules. Thus, they did not dare to ask anything else. They quickly took the books and left. Each messenger had 12 books to copy. It was indeed a big project to complete in 4 days. They might need to stay up late to get it done on time. When the 4 messengers left, Di Fui stood and observed the place where Gu Shijiu had disappeared. He spent an extended amount of time there. All of a sudden, his hair started turning white. She did not like to see him with white hair, so even if it utilized a substantial amount of spiritual power, he still tried to maintain his black hair in front of her. However, it was unnecessary now, so he just let it be natural. There was fire everywhere. The earth and rock under their feet were burning. Gu Shijiu could still feel the heat even though she wore the outfit made by the skin of a kuanpeng and used the fire avoidance technique. It had been 4 days. She searched for it for 4 days and still did not see the purple cloud mushroom. This forbidden place was vast. It seemed to have over 100,000 mountains. Gu Shijiu initially thought that the pathway would be clear based on her dream. She expected that after she came in, she could easily find the sea full of purple cloud mushrooms. She did not expect that the mountains in this area would all look very similar. Every mountain she walked through looked like a mountain in her dream, but none of them gave her any hope. How could this be? Was it really just a dream? "Master, are we still going forward?" The mussel had been walking around with her, and it felt that the fire had burned its shell. If it did not use the technique taught by Di Fui, it might have been a cooked mussel by now. Fortunately, Lu Wu was a fire beast. Hence, even after walking for so many days, it still looked well as before. The only concern was that its beautiful eyes were full of exhaustion. After 4 days and 4 nights of searching, its owner did not even rest for 2 hours, but just continued searching for the purple cloud mushroom. Lu Wu looked at Gu Shijiu and noticed that her eyes were a little red, but she was still energetic. She bit her lips and only answered with one word. "Continue." Well, the purple cloud mushroom was the only hope of their master. She would try her best to find it. Thus, the muscle and Lu Wu continued to accompany her in the search. In this forbidden place, there were spewing fires as well as unknown fire beasts that jumped out from time to time and wanted to hurt them. They were not too overpowering thus far, but quite troublesome nonetheless. Although Gu Shijiu and the two beasts could kill them eventually, it was indeed very exhausting. There was no day or night here as the sky had always been red. Gu Shijiu calculated the time according to the watch on her body. Di Fui said that she could only stay here for 6 days, which meant she had less than 2 days. However, she still had no clue where to find the mushroom. Her heart was getting tired. It grew heavier and heavier each passing moment. What if it was really just a dream? What should she do? It was boiling around her, but her hands and feet were bursting with coldness. Suddenly she stopped. The muscle almost bumped into her. It took a step back and asked, "Master, what's wrong?" I suddenly feel uncomfortable." Gu Shijiu could not help but press on her chest. Her pretty face was pale. "Master, you are too tired. I think you should take a break. You can't do this anymore." The muscle used its clamshell to support her back. Gu Shijiu bit her lips. Was this the reason? Maybe. After all, she was not just staying up late in this place. She had to constantly utilize a spell just to stay alive. However, she could not afford to rest. There were still 2 nights and a day. She could not sleep. She shook her head. She did not know why, but she inexplicably wanted to shed tears. She initially wanted to continue walking, but at this moment, she felt that her legs were weak and she could hardly stand. A cold sweat came out along her forehead. Finally, she leaned on the muscle's shell and almost fell to the ground. "Master! Master!" The muscle was frightened. It hurriedly put her into its shell. The stones on the ground were scorching hot. If its owner sat down, she might get burned. It was quite cool inside the shell. The muscle shrank its body into the shell and looked at her with concern. "Master, your face looks terrible. Do you want to take a break?" "Hey, Master, why are you crying?" Gu Shijiu did not know what was going on, but just felt like she wanted to cry. Her tears dropped uncontrollably. She wiped the tears on her face and shook her head. She tried to talk, but her throat seemed to block by a duck egg, and she could not speak. "Master, I think it may be too hot." "What is the term?" "Heat stroke." "You must be getting a heat stroke." The muscle pretended to be a doctor and concluded. It took out a bottle of iced honey water for her. "Come, Master, drink it." Gu Shijiu also felt thirsty, so she took a few mouthfuls of the drink. Di Fui made it. It seemed like Di Fui really prepared everything for Gu Shijiu. He even asked the muscle to store a lot of food and drinks for her. The strange thing was that she did not feel thirsty and hungry at all over the past few days. Gu Shijiu looked at the bottle of iced honey water. She felt as though a flood of tears were going to start rolling down her cheeks again. She shook her head and leaned against the inner shell of the muscle. She closed her eyes for a moment. Maybe she was exhausted. Therefore, she decided to take a break and rest for an hour. Her chest was still very tight and in pain. Was she suffering from angina? She took out some medicine and consumed it immediately. In just a matter of seconds, she quickly fell asleep. She had a dream. There was a lake somewhere far away and a garden with flowers, trees and a big rock. Different kinds of flowers were fully blossomed in the area. There was also a cloud surrounding her like the Yaoqi Wonderland. Gu Shijiu recognized this place. It was the back garden of the Biwu Palace. After that she saw Di Fui. Her heart suddenly sank. His hair was white, and his face was as pale as snow. Gu Shijiu noticed the words engraved on the big rock behind him. Tianchang Di Jiu. That was written by Gu Shijiu. Gu Zijia's eyes were fixed on his hair. Why was his hair white? What had happened? She turned her head again and saw Mu Feng and the other 3 messengers kneeling somewhere not far away. Their eyes were also fixed on Di Fui, and their bodies were trembling. They were tearing like crazy. Gu Shijiu immediately ran over. "Fui, what's wrong with you?" Her body passed through Di Fui, and she looked back. Di Fui still sat there. He did not look at her, and also did not look at the 4 messengers who were tearing crazily. He was looking down at something in his hand. It was a ring. Their wedding ring. His fingers were touching the ring, and he sighed. Shijio, I am sorry. Gu Zijia's heart was tightened as if she had expected something to happen. She rushed to him again. Difui, don't scare me. Her body passed through him again, and she fell to the ground. In fact, she had hurt her knee, but she did not care about it. She turned to see him, and then witnessed a scene that made her heart shatter. There was dim light that surrounded Difui, and his feet gradually disappeared. Difui, don't you dare leave me. You are not due to go yet. How can you be immortalized now? Gu Shijio was panicked and screamed at the top of her lungs. She rushed over again. However, she still could not touch him at all and just passed through his body. The longer she stared, the less she could see of Difui. He was fading away. Gu Shijio burst out crying. She ran to his side and pulled his sleeve. Difui, don't leave me. I'm afraid. Master. Master. Gu Shijio could hear the muscle. She shuddered, and everything in front of her shattered. She suddenly opened her eyes, and she saw the worried eyes of the muscle. Master, Master, are you dreaming? Are you feeling better now? Gu Shijio was conscious again. Her heart was pumping at a fast speed as if it did not belong to her. It was a dream just now. Fortunately, it was a dream. However, the suffering she endured was real. She wiped her face and found a big stain of water in her hand. Master, what nightmare did you have? You were crying and screaming. The muscle was scared for her. Gu Shijio took a deep breath and jumped straight up. We have to leave now. I want to go out. Her voice was trembling. The muscle still wondered. Master, we haven't found the purple cloud mushroom yet, and there are still 2 days. We should not give up. Although it also wanted to go out early, it understood how vital the purple cloud mushroom was to its master. It was challenging to come in, so it would be a waste to go out empty-handed. However, Gu Shijio was impatient. I want to go out first. She wanted to make sure that he was fine first. She would then come in again. In this forbidden land, she could not contact anyone from the outside world. Otherwise, she would have reached Difui by using her directed audio spell. Gu Shijio rushed out of the mussel shell. As she was too worried and panicked, when she landed, she almost fell. Luwu was waiting anxiously outside. Fortunately, it quickly used its tail to help Gu Shijio stand stably. It asked with concern. Master, are you okay? Gu Shijio shook her head. We need to go out. Right now. She did not want to was a single second. Difui had taught her how to go out, but she needed to travel to the place where she entered. When she was searching for the mushroom inside the forbidden land, she could not miss any place, so she never used teleportation. Now she just wanted to go out as soon as possible, so she did not care about overlooking any sight anymore. Since she had gone deep into the land, it would take 6 hours to go back even with teleportation. She grabbed the mussel in her left hand and pulled Luwu in her right hand. Let's go. Gu Shijio did not wait for the 2 beasts to respond and started teleporting. In this forbidden land, the speed of teleportation was significantly reduced. She could only teleport about 20 miles at a time, and she had traveled 700 to 800 miles already. She carried the 2 beasts and stopped on a hillside after more than 20 teleportations. She was understandably already tired and exhausted. Her limbs were trembling, and her throat was dry. However, this was not the most terrible feeling she had even for today. The scene in her dreams where Difui had been immortalized was worse. It made her even more panicked and worried. It was just a dream. It must be a dream. It must be because she missed him too much and was too afraid of seeing him die. The last day of Difui's life had not come yet. There were still 6 days to go. How could it be? What she saw must have just been a dream then. However, her dreams were often real, so what if this was also true? Could it be that Difui already knew that he would pass on a bit earlier? And he sent Gu Shijio away on her own, so that she did not have to witness it. Maybe her dream about purple cloud mushroom was fake. It was his manipulation. No. He would not do that. Difui, I will hate you if you did this. All kinds of thoughts were lingering in her head, and the tears in her eyes started to drop again. Her eyes were getting blurry. Master, Are you crying again? What dream did you have? The mussel started to regret. If it knew it earlier, it would not have asked her to take a rest. Gushijio rubbed her eyes with her sleeves. She wanted to talk, but her throat felt as if it was blocked. The mussel felt her little hand was cold. It felt distressed. Master, take a break. Gushijio took a slight breather. I am okay. She was eager to go home. When she was just about to pull the two beasts and teleport, suddenly, Luwu shouted. A master! Look! What is that? Gushijio was shocked by its scream. She followed the direction where its tail pointed, and saw a few purple bushes on the hillside in the front of a cliff. As a mountain blocked it, Gushijio could not see the whole picture there. But it was very bright purple. Gushijio desperately teleported to that place. It was a large piece of land full of purple cloud mushrooms. As seen in her dreams, those purple cloud mushrooms looked like hands pinching a spell. She started to feel hopeful again. She found it. God, she really found it. Her dream was real. Difui did not manipulate it. This thing really existed. Guzijia's heart was racing again. This time, it was for a positive reason. The dream directed her to come here. And the purple cloud mushroom did exist, which proved that God wanted her to save Difui. The dream she had in the shell of the mussel must be due to her worries of losing Difui. It could not be real. God would not play with her this way, right? There was a variety of thoughts in her mind. Meanwhile, she had already flown over and reached out to pick the purple cloud mushroom. Master, be careful. Luwu suddenly rushed over. At the same time, there was a fiery giant dragon that leaped up from the bushes near the purple cloud mushrooms. It spouted a flame and shot directly at Gushijio. Gushijio almost got hit by the flame. She quickly issued a spell to block the fire. Luwu used its tails to issue a fire to block the flame too. It squinted with its round eyes and held its small claws. It is actually a level 8 beast. The mussel also rushed over. Its clamshell was as sharp as a knife. It is not only a level 8 beast, it is almost level 9. Little Lu, let's work together to kill it. Luwu already charged forward. Okay. Be careful. Don't let it roast you. It spun its tails like a windmill and charged toward the fiery giant dragon. The mussel enlarged its body to 10 times bigger than its usual size. It was like a big moving house. While the little man who was standing on the big house also turned into a golden force, with both hands pulling out a sharp weapon while heading toward the giant dragon. Although the giant dragon was not in a human appearance, it could speak human language. While it was fighting with these two beasts, it shouted, I have been waiting here for 10,000 years for the purple cloud mushroom. You can't snatch it. Go back now. It's not easy for you to beat me at this level. I don't want to give you all a hard time. Its voice was booming and left everyone's ears buzzing. 10,000 years. This giant dragon had been waiting for 10,000 years. The mussel felt that it was considered old enough in this world. It never expected to meet someone older than it. It stopped playing its weapon and looked at the dragon. The scales on the dragon were bright red. When it was flying, it shined like an arched rainbow. A pair of eyes were like 2 lanterns, and its fierceness was overflowing. It was a 10,000-year-old beast. It was not a good idea to fight with it. In the past, when the mussel encountered spiritual beasts at this level, it would definitely run far away. But now it could not give up. The purple cloud mushroom was the last hope that Gushijio had to keep Difui alive. She would do anything to retrieve enough for Difui. Due to the urgency that Gushijio faced, she did not want to fight at this time. She was anxious to pick up a few mushrooms and quickly return to the Biwu Palace. I'll only pick 12. There was a large piece of land here, with hundreds of purple cloud mushrooms. She thought that it should be okay for her to take 12. However, the giant dragon was unreasonable. No. You can't even pick one. All the mushrooms here belong to me. Guzijia's eyes become more fierce. Don't regret it. If you force me to fight with you, I will take more than 12. The giant dragon laughed. You are just a little human, and you dare to threaten me. You should give up. You are not going to take a single mushroom back. Gu Shijio did not want to waste time on it anymore. She pulled out the long whip from her waist. All right. You asked for it. Don't blame me. Before attacking the dragon, Gu Shijio realized that its blood could also help prolong Di Fuya's life. The muscle knew that the fight was inevitable, so it also threatened the dragon. You are such a stubborn creature. You must be a lousy dragon to still have this form after 10,000 years. You are not qualified to own all the mushrooms here. I am going to cut you into pieces and bake you for dinner. The giant dragon could not believe how irrational these people were to take it on. It was dumbfounded. It roared thunderously that the land beneath it was shaking. It then hovered around and turned to rush forward toward the muscle. The muscle was ready and instinctively released its defense mechanism. Lu Wu also prepared itself to attack the unreasonable dragon. After 15 minutes, the muscle snake spears had been shattered while Lu Wu's tails were burnt. It became apparent that these two beasts were not at the same level as this dragon. Fortunately, Gu Shijio had blocked most of the attacks from the dragon, or else these two beasts would have been its dinner instead. Although the dragon proved to be a powerful opponent, Gu Shijio was not ready to concede. She continuously attacked the creature with her sword and whip. The constant attacks made the dragon grow frustrated. It wanted to destroy her. Under its violent attack, Gu Shijio felt as though she was in a boat during a raging storm. If she were unlucky, it would capsize at any time. Therefore, she regularly retreated. However, the giant dragon continued to chase after her. After some time, they were both far away from the prized treasure that they sought. At first, the muscles and Lu Wu were moving along with the two of them. However, both beasts slowly faded into the background. Initially, the giant dragon was very alert and protected the mushrooms. However, after a few strikes, it did not even pay attention to them anymore. They were now miles away. Suddenly, the dragon realized that the muscle was missing. It immediately wanted to fly back to check on the mushrooms. However, it was too late. Master, I have picked up the purple cloud mushrooms. Look. It opened its shell, and there were dark and light purple mushrooms inside. The mushrooms almost filled up its shell. There were so many of them that a stranger might have thought it collected all purple cloud mushroom from the land. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.